Howdy, everybody. Good to see you. Just a few minutes late today. Just getting everything in order, watching the sound, making sure the sound's good. But welcome to another episode of Mastermind Academy on a very happy day, happy Thursday. So I was just, I was watching a stream earlier where they call it Thursday Junior Friday or Friday Junior. I like that. I'm still in that. I'm going to use that. Almost Friday. Happy Almost Friday. And we're learning Linux today. I'm pretty excited. This is my favorite series. At least the whole, like most of the stuff in Devops Anthology is my favorite. We'll talk today about what Devops Anthology is and what Anthology series will be, period. But yeah, we're just gonna, get comfortable. I got my iced coffee, got a little bit of water, but yes, happy Friday Eve. Friday Eve is just as good as Junior Friday. But that's right, hey baby. I'm hoping some of y'all were doing the little dance slide. So I have a daughter now, and she's super young. I mean, she's just one, but she's got a lot of energy, and I'm very confident she's gonna be, in all the TikTok stuff. So I'm trying to be the cool dad already, and I'm gonna learn some of the TikTok dances. And I tried the little slide, the little jump slide thing. I did my best. I'm not bad at doing it in place. Not bad at all at doing it in place. At least I think so. Maybe I'll, record it. But I can't move right or left. Like, I don't understand how people are doing it. I look really stupid when I move right or left, like most people. And it kind of hurt my knees a little bit. And I got tired real fast. That's how I know I'm out of shape. Got to get back in the gym because a little bit sad. All right. So the light came on in my office. I hate it. There's tape over the lights in my office. They come on every now and then. I guess I don't have it perfectly covered. So I'm not going to be comfortable until they go off. But we'll still get started. What's good about today is every night, I do this as a rite of passage now. I do this for good luck. I say all the time, I'm going to get you out of here early. And then we go overtime every single time. But this time in particular, I believe it. Today's a little bit more informational. And so, it'll be good. We'll hop into it quick. We don't have to do the same. I don't think for this one, we need to go through the same intro as we always go through for the other two longer things. But yeah, first thing we should do is talk about what these DevOps Anthology courses are going to be, or what Anthology courses are going to be here at Mastermind, period. So before, we had something here called excursions. And these were shorter boot camps. So there were journeys at first, which were 8 to 12 week boot camps, different levels. You used to run, 3 levels of those. And then we'd have these excursions, which were shorter, between 3 and 8 weeks, usually 3 and 6. But in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to take those excursions. They'll still exist. They have a new name now. I already forgot the new name. But we're going to be making some courses, some larger conceptual courses out of the smaller courses, so that you can go and participate in these self-contained courses, and hop in when you need to, hop out when you already know the topic. But so this is going to be a DevOps course. But it's going to be made up of all of these mini courses inside of it. So these are all their own individual self-contained courses. So this is a 7-part Linux series. The SysOps one is, because the SysOps one, so Anthology isn't quite the right word, because I think anthologies are supposed to be unrelated stories. SysOps builds off of Linux only because you kind of need Linux. Linux is at the base of everything. And so it's, if you got to know a little bit of Linux to get to this portion. I think this one is 5 weeks. It's like 4 or 5 weeks. It's actually not even as long as the Linux course. A little bit of Python. I think that one is 4 or 5 weeks as well. Tracks, Git Masterclass is actually 5 weeks. Networking concepts is like 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. Monitoring observability is only like 2 or 3 weeks. I think 3 weeks. Contained Docker Deep Dive is, I have 2 of them, and I'm trying to figure out which one I want to do. I have so it's the Docker Deep Dive course, but I have one that would be like it gets in real deep, and I'm not sure. I might even pare it down somewhere in the middle where the course is like 7 weeks, because there's a lot you can learn about Docker, but there's not a lot you have to learn about Docker. And so it'll probably be about that long. CI/CD will be 2 weeks. Hoist will be 3 weeks. Ansible, I think, is 3 weeks as well. And this Harmony, the Kubernetes course, will be 5 or 6 weeks. So those, some of that will change because I'm still modifying some of the courses a little bit, but that is what this is going to be. We have a few more anthologies that are going to be built out of some of these things too. So there's going to be some overlap, but again, it's designed for you to be able to hop in, hop out, whenever you need to kind of hop in, get some information about a specific topic, a specific technology. But if you participated in them all, you will gain an understanding of a much larger concept. So you can hit ! Linux Classroom in the chat, and it will take you to a Google Classroom, which will give you the slides. I am going to grab actually, I don't need the slides link today. There we go. Lights off, much more helpful for me. Helps me get in the mood, get comfortable, relax a little bit after a long day. Okay, actually the other thing I wanted to go over is VODs. So that's something I've been trying to get. If you do ! VODs, or you click the panel down below for VODs, we've created a new YouTube channel specifically for the video on demand, for the replays of the Academy. The stuff will go up the night of is when they'll get uploaded. We have very high upload speeds here, and so I will upload them as soon as the stream is over. But it does take a little bit to process sometimes because they are pretty long. So feel free to follow, and this is where they'll all go. It creates playlists as well, so I'm creating playlists. All of them will get stuck right into a playlist. Same thing for this course. I'm also going to be moving all of the most of them, not all of them. I'm going to move at least one of each boot camp from the other channel to this channel. So all of the replays are going to happen here, and all of the other content is going to be happening on the other channel. Really hoping, I've had videos recorded and edited for a long time. And so I'm hoping to release weekly things on the other channel. The other channel will be, for this reason in particular, early next week, releasing a full Linux, ultimate Linux desktop setup video. It'll teach you all about the Linux desktop itself, and if you want to do all the cool, rice it out, make it all the cool stuff, change all the cool things. If you want to dive into it, it'll give you a chance to do that. But a lot of stuff is coming over there. Cool. All right, I think that's everything that I needed to tell you. Yeah, pretty sure that's everything I need to tell you. So we can hop straight into it. Remember, Waddle. You'll know if you have no idea about Linux, if this is your first time hearing anything about Linux, the word Waddle will make more sense to you in a little bit once you find out a little bit more about what Linux is. But day one, Waddle, Foundations in Linux. All right, today we're gonna cover, you're gonna walk away knowing exactly what Linux is. You'll know what it is. Whether or not you're gonna be able to repeat it, maybe tough. We're gonna talk about Linux distributions, and you're gonna have an understanding of what those are. Intro to virtualization. We're gonna talk about virtualization. It is, some of the topics today in particular, if you're trying to do system stuff, if you're trying to do sysadmin or DevOps, you're going to be dealing with the system in any way, the stuff will be important. If you're coming to learn Linux so that you just feel better on the command line and you're a programmer or something, this information is great to know, but I wouldn't spend too much time, knowing exactly what virtualization. I don't think it's super essential that you're a pro at this stuff, but it is good information to have. After today, it'll be basically, Linux command line stuff for everybody, and it'll be useful to every single person. The stuff that we're gonna learn today is a little bit more centered around the person who's gonna be closer to the system. I completely understand DYM. I wouldn't also not hop on that plane either. So we'll learn about dual booting. We'll talk about dual dual booting for like 2 seconds, but I want you to be aware of what it is. And then we'll talk about Linux installation and other options. So we'll talk about how you can get yourself set up to have access to Linux so that you can participate fully in this course. So cool. All right, so what is Linux? Well, it is a free and open source operating system. So FOSS, you'll see free and open source a lot. It's at the heart of what Linux is. Free and open source operating system. I think we talk about open source. Okay, I pulled out the slide on open source. So what that means is this software does not cost you any money. It is free and open source. If you were on Monday's Camp Code, we talked about what source code is. Source code being the human readable code that you or I write. And so when we say open source, we're talking about open source code, meaning the source code for the actual piece of software is open and available for people to look at, to see, and also to contribute to. Meaning I can go and grab the entire code base for Linux or the Linux kernel, and I can modify it. So things that are free and open source, you can see the code, you can look at it, you can take it, you can do pretty much what you like with it, and you can make it better if you want to make it better. So it is free and open source software. It is a Unix-like operating system. We're surprisingly not going to dive too deep into Unix tonight, or at all. Unix is actually a proprietary. Well, it's not proprietary. But it's not. It's not exactly free and open source in the same way that the GNU project is, and we're going to talk about that, or the GNU project, but it's a Unix-like operating system. So it's not Unix. For legal reasons, we have to say it's Unix-like because of the legal status of this. Mac OS is also a Unix-like operating system. It's Unix-like. You got to say it's like, it's very, very close. They're very, very similar. Unix and Linux are very, very similar. But the operating system's not actually really Linux. It's actually the GNU Linux or GNU Linux. That's not important. Linux purist will yell at you about this thing, but it's okay. I just want you to be familiar with GNU. I feel, I don't remember what GNU stands for. Oh, never mind. I put it right there. It stands for GNU's Not Unix. It is a recursive acronym. So GNU is an acronym for GNU is not Unix. Okay, super weird. It's basically just a project saying, hey, this is not Unix, and there's free and open source tools built on this thing that all go into this thing. It's created by a guy named Linus Torvalds. Okay, this is, whoops, didn't mean to press that button, but I think we're okay. It's created by a guy named Linus Torvalds, who has made probably two of the most influential contributions to the tech world, to the tech industry, to the way that we do things, to the way that we contribute to software. It's pretty dope. Not only did he create the Linux kernel, he also created Git. Okay, he created the software Git specifically to be able to contribute to the Linux kernel. Git is huge. Git is like, it's become the kind of a de facto place to go if you want to work in a distributed nature when building software. And it was created by this guy, and again, specifically to work on the Linux kernel because Linux is that big and important. And it is really just a kernel. We'll talk about what that means. It's not an operating system in the sense that you're used to. It is really just a kernel. As someone who is already bad with acronyms, I'm not a fan. Of GNU. I completely understand. Oh yeah, Darwin is based on FreeBSD. FreeBSD being a Unix operating system, free being the open source version of it. All right. So when we said Linux is just a kernel, what the heck is a kernel? I'm going to read this to you, and then I'm going to tell you what it actually means. So Linux kernel is the main component of a Linux operating system. So the very heart of the operating system, and is the core interface. And actually, where's my pen? Let me find my pen because that line's good, and I actually don't know where my pen is. Well, looks like we won't be using the Wacom tablet today. Where'd it go? I'll find it later. But that's the important part. It's the core interface. between the computer's hardware and its processes. That's really what you need to know about the kernel. You kind of don't need to know more about the kernel than that right there. Between the computer's hardware, so the computer that it's running on, that RAM and the processor and all those different pieces, the power, and the actual software itself. Communicates between the two, managing resources as efficiently as possible. So it is what allows the communication between hardware and software. It's called a kernel because, like a seed inside of a hard shell, it exists within the OS and controls all of the major functions of the hardware, whether it's phone, laptop, server, or any other kind of computer. Dope. So really it's the central piece of software that allows communication between the hardware and the software. And that's really what you need when running a computer. It manages and handles all of those processes and things that need to happen for a computer to run. And so it's super duper important. Also notice how they said phone, laptop, server, or any other kind of computer. Something I didn't put on here that you should be aware of is that Linux basically runs the world. A lot of people don't know this, but it basically runs the world. Everything you use. Your Android phones are Linux. Most servers in the world are running Linux and Unix. You 100% interact with Linux. If you exist on the web, you 100% are using or interacting with Linux systems every single day of your life. Many Linux systems every single day of your life. I can almost guarantee Linux is what is enabling you to see me right now. The data that's going through the servers, the data the things that are running the chat are all going through Linux. I would bet a lot of money on that. So it's all around us all the time, and most people have no idea. I didn't know this before, but technically iOS, iPadOS, they're all Darwin. Yes, correct. They are. Let's see. Making both Git and Linux. Do you do a GitHub review? Yes, we do a Git. We do a Git masterclass. Not a GitHub review. We do a Git masterclass. I think that's the third or fourth thing that we do. So a couple weeks we'll be doing it. Let's see. Are those your hands in the gift? They are not. My hands are meatier, I guess. I'm a bad typist because I have fat fingers. Well, at least that's what I like to blame it on. It's better. That makes me feel better than saying I just can't type. But yeah. Your smart TV uses Linux? Absolutely. I thought Android was Java-ish. So yes, Android uses Java. I think Kotlin as well, and I think you can write some things in other languages. I think you can even do some Python there. That's a language that you use to build apps on it, but it is the thing that's running, that's managing those processes, that's talking to the hardware, is actually a Linux kernel. iOS doesn't use a Linux kernel. It uses a Unix-like kernel. Pretty sure the iOS devices use a Unix type kernel. Gary Vaynerchuk, yes, I wish I was falling off T-Pain, to be honest. I would be much richer than I am right now. Smart cars do use Linux, absolutely. All right, so let's do, how do you even begin to write something that talks to the hardware? Great question. Be smarter than I am right now. Well, yeah, I mean, really, learn C, learn C++, get real smart. And actually, it's actually not even get real smart. It is just spending some time learning the different pieces and hacking and trying. One of the first things you should learn besides the language, try Pro Git if you're going to contribute to software projects written by other people. Yes, I think Git is Git helpful to know as a beginning software developer? Absolutely. Git is one of the most important things you should learn as a software developer. And when we do the Git masterclass, you'll realize that Git is very, very easy to get into immediately. It's very easy to do the base workflow, the happy path. But it actually gets much more difficult when you really understand what you're supposed to do with it and all the tools and the workflows it has built into it to be able to work with other people around the world. It can be very, very difficult to master. What's up, Goku? All right. Distributions, Linux distributions. So Linux distributions are a collection of tools and software packaged together to provide a certain experience. So the Linux kernel is just one thing. And so if you've ever heard about Linux and heard people talk about Linux, you might hear them say a lot of different things. Ubuntu, Red Hat, Arch, Gentoo. They might say a bunch of different things and you're like, whoa, what's going on here? These are different distributions. There's one Linux kernel. Well, there's a Linux kernel that these things are built around, and then software is packaged up with the kernel to provide a certain experience. That's what these distributions are. Okay, thank you so much, Justin Script, for the tier 1 sub. Good to have you. But so like Windows, you're probably used to getting Windows. Windows actually has its own kernel, and it's got a bunch of software packaged in. Same thing for Mac, but the Linux kernel, you can take the Linux kernel, and because it's free and it's open source, I can take the Linux kernel and then I can start to throw different pieces of software over top of it to provide an experience that I think it would be good for someone to have. And that's what these Linux distributions are, and there are tons of them. All right, and so this is an unreadable timeline. And again, I don't even know where my pen, I don't know where it went at all. I'm pretty sure my daughter threw it somewhere yesterday, and maybe I'll find it a little bit later. But this is a timeline for Linux distributions starting around the year 1990. And it's hard to see. But what I do want you to see is maybe I can do something with my mouse. Actually, I think I can do this with my mouse. Yeah, okay. Actually, this might be easier than using the pen. So there's different timelines here. And so basically there's been like core main distributions that have been built, and then there's been a bunch of distributions built off of those. And like I said, it's free and it's open source. So you can build your own distribution at your heart's content. If you decide you want to go off and do something new, you can absolutely go off and do that. But remember, these are just the Linux kernel and software packaged on top. And so the software that we're talking about are things like a desktop environment. So the windows and things that you see from a normal computer, this is a suite of software that gives you buttons to press, that gives you icons to click on, that gives you certain menus that do different things. And so there are a bunch of different desktop environments that you might want to use. And then maybe, what web browser ships with a system. And so maybe it's Firefox, and for most Linux distributions, it's Firefox. It usually don't come with Chrome or anything like that, but these are things that you can install. And what is the person going to use for their networking? What is the person going to, do they have access to Bluetooth, drivers and things like that? What do they have access to is kind of what this distribution is. And so things kind of branched off in a couple different ways. And I only want to talk about, I'll talk about 4 of them, 4 different ways really quick. The first one, not to say this is the first one that branched off, it's just the first one I'm talking about because it's right here, is this one, Debian. Okay? Debian. This is an operating system that's super popular, super widely used. It's known a bit for its stability. It's used a little bit more. Actually, things are changing with this a little bit, but it's used a little bit more in the desktop space, and that specifically has to do with some of the distributions that were built on top of it. But I only want to talk. I'm really only going to highlight some of the more popular ones, and that's stuff like, and it's so small that I cannot see it, and they probably have a different line for it. Where is my mouse? Is the operating system called Ubuntu or Ubuntu. I don't really know how to pronounce it, but I call it Ubuntu. It's a real Swahili word, meaning I think it means togetherness. So if you don't know, if you've never seen it, it looks like this. And usually, if anyone's seen anything about a Linux distribution, they've seen Ubuntu. It is managed developed upon us and managed by a company called Canonical. And yes, we did say it's free and open source, but a lot of corporations, a lot of companies do kind of manage these things. There's some that charge support. Ubuntu will happily charge you support if you are enterprise client. But this has become one of the most popular desktop Linux distributions. So we talk about things going on servers, on phones, all that. Ubuntu became super popular because it made Linux approachable. It made Linux feel more like Windows or more like Mac than anything else. I think that it did it the best for a while. I've been using Linux for a long time, and I think that the pieces of software that they chose really did make it easy for someone who was trying to switch from Windows to be able to hop in and be effective with the operating system. Does that mean it's the best operating system out there? You know, it's all on what you want to do. I think it's great. I think it's absolutely great. But you know, people have their feelings about it, and I understand all of those feelings. You know, Ubuntu started to put in some things. You know, the free and open source community really likes their privacy. Ubuntu started to do some things that went against, you know, the privacy, the privacy that people really liked, and start to feel like they were pushing some things onto you, made partnerships with companies like Amazon and stuff. And, you know how people feel about stuff like that. You might feel a certain way about that as well. But I do personally like Ubuntu. I think it's a great place to start. There's other big ones called like Linux Mint. Not so much anymore. Linux Mint is a good one, but there are a bunch of Debian-based distributions. Debian itself, usually Debian is chosen as the stability factor. It's usually used on servers more than desktops, in my experience at least, and from what I see. But yeah, Ubuntu's one of the bigger ones, has to be talked about. But remember this, remember Debian-based distributions. You're gonna find out throughout this course why that matters, why it's helpful to be able to categorize these things and know that a distribution is Debian based. It affects, remember, it's packaged up with a certain amount of software, so it affects how you can install things, the way that you can get things, what you need to do when you do need to install things, and so it is important to think about that and to know about it. Let me see if I can find this image so I can share it with you. Tried Ubuntu for first time in years. Compared to Mint, it feels very clunky. I agree that it feels very clunky if you are used to something like Mint, which I think has a more familiar design. I don't think it's bad though. Oh, the one I want to tell you about though is Pop OS. By a company called System 76. If you've never heard of them, they actually make, they make their own distribution called Pop OS. It is an Ubuntu based distribution. I'm pretty sure it's Ubuntu based and not Debian based, even though, you know, but they sell Linux laptops. They sell laptops that come with Linux on them that they support. They build their own desktops. They actually create their own desktops with open source firmware, all this other stuff. And so if you just want it to work, I've owned a System 76 laptop that I purchased with my own money, and I found it to be, you know, the laptop wasn't the best laptop, but the software experience was actually amazing. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, I think Pop OS is to me, Pop OS is the best desktop experience that you can have out of the box right now in the Linux world. You debate me all you want. I've been doing this stuff for a long time. I'm not a fan. I'm a fan of getting things done nowadays. I don't want to fight. I don't want to configure. Pop OS really does, for me, gives me the best experience right out of the box. Fedora, Arch, Gentoo, Nix OS. Sure. Recommend Arch. Yeah, I would recommend not starting with Arch. Correct. We're gonna talk about Arch. Don't start out with Arch, please. You will make it hard for yourself. How's Pop OS support for random drivers and stuff? Amazing. In my experience has been amazing. That's why I started using it originally, because NVIDIA drivers were incredibly difficult to do in Linux before Pop OS. A couple of distributions had installers that did it okay. Pop OS, and they're amazing. It comes with everything you need. You simply click the NVIDIA one and it works. It works with your computer. It does really, really well. I'm not currently running Pop OS. I'm actually, because of compatibility reasons, I'm running Windows on everything. I know that sounds crazy, but I'm running Windows full time everywhere right now with WSL2. Yeah, but no, I haven't found any rough edges. I've installed it on multiple laptops. It's been installed on the laptop that you're looking at, which is that framework laptop. I've had it on this custom desktop. I've had it on many computers. I'm telling you, it is one of the most stable pieces of software I've ever used. It's great. I can't fault it. I can't fault it. Usually, the things that I want to do when I want to use my computer, I want to do some development. I want to play some games. It does all those things great. I never have any issues with it. Just hopped in from Learn with Leon, and I don't know what's already been answered. What's your thought on the Rail Developer Edition? All right, we're about to get into Rail right now. Generic Make Kitchen, thank you so much for the raid. I'm so sorry that I messed up your name. I'm really sure I messed it up. Thank you so much for coming through. I'm gonna try to spell it right so I can give you a shout out. I appreciate it. Yeah, so let's sorry, I spent a lot of time on the Ubuntu based distributions. Let's learn a little bit more about the others, and then we can have a deeper conversation about it real quick. So after actually let me see if I can find this timeline, Linux distro timeline, so I can blow it up so you can see it a little bit better. Because I just got it off of Google. Oh, these are worse. These are much worse. But this is the one I think that I have. So there are a few other big timelines. The two that I want you to focus on are Debian, which is up here. How do I move this around? Yeah, Debian, you see just Ubuntu's just this little thing right here, even though I told you how important it is. Look at all these other ones. The other big path, and we're gonna talk about 4 paths, like I said, the other big path I want you to worry about right now is Red Hat. So look how this one's going all the way down to the bottom. This one's going all the way up to the top of Red Hat. These are the kind of two, when you're working in Linux, when we get away from desktop Linux distributions and we're talking about working with different distributions and what's running servers, mostly Debian and Red Hat based distributions, So what is Red Hat? So there is a company, if you don't know, called Red Hat. And Red Hat's actually a pretty dope company. Yes, they're both still free. Debian's still free. Red Hat's not free. We'll talk about that. But Red Hat is a company. The Linux kernel is open source, so they can't charge you to purchase. It. But what they can charge you for is support. And so that's what they've done. They've created an enterprise, a very stable enterprise level Linux distribution. Again, designed for servers. They actually have a desktop distribution as well. I've seen it used like once ever at a company. Yeah, they could charge you, it just wouldn't go well. But Red Hat's great. They make a lot of dope products. They've purchased a lot of dope companies. They do some good things. They're not all bad, but it does cost money to use actual Red Hat Enterprise. So you'll hear it called RHEL, RHEL, Red Hat Enterprise Linux. And it will cost some money for you to be able to do that. A lot of companies use that. There used to be, there's a super popular open source version of this called CentOS. But CentOS doesn't, it's not CentOS anymore, or it's closing down, or they're doing something. I forgot what happened with CentOS, but it's different now. It's much different now. And if anyone knows, remind me, because I can't remember what it was. Something about them being able to go upstream or something like that. But I don't think CentOS is the thing anymore. I think they started a new one. Yes, it's being deprecated. But CentOS basically was the open source version of Red Hat. So it was literally Red Hat without the support. And so companies would either be using Red Hat or CentOS for their systems, but you wouldn't need to know the difference between them. Honestly, they're just same thing. So that's a Red Hat based distribution. So they have a developer edition now. Okay. So it sounds like there's a developer edition where you may be able to get a free one. Rocky Linux. I think the people who used to run CentOS have now gone over to Rocky Linux, and now you can already start to see how crazy this can get and why there are so many branches of that timeline. Like look at all these different distributions. New Enterprise Linux, Rocky, the community way. I like this. I'm gonna check this out. Yes, Red Hat charges for distribution support. Correct. Oh, Fedora. Fedora doesn't really. So I don't find that I've never seen Fedora running on a production system for the server space. Fedora is the Red Hat branch of desktop Linux. It works for servers as well, but I don't really see this in the workplace. But if you're looking for a good desktop, Fedora is amazing. The difference between CentOS and Fedora used to be that Fedora was cutting edge. So when you think about enterprise, when you think about companies, you want to keep things stable. When you want to keep things stable, that means you move slowly. So that means you don't get access to new features or to new things very quickly, which is, again, good for stability, but very bad if you're trying to develop new things, if you're trying to experience new things. And so Fedora was the more cutting edge Red Hat distribution that you could use that would get live updates, and it would get rolling updates and a bunch of cool things to allow you to have the most fresh experience. Fedora Workstation, that's the desktop edition, is pretty great. Like I said, I've never used Fedora Server. It is Red Hat based. I don't think it would be weird at all to use. Once you get a handle on one, you kind of know your way around all of the ones of the same family, and really all of them across the board. But again, there's some core things that you do with them where this lineage does in fact matter. Apparently, Rocky's owned by Gregory Curse. It's for profit. I didn't know that. Owned by nonprofit. So pick Alma over Rocky. That makes sense. That definitely makes sense. So yeah, so there's Red Hat, CentOS, Fedora, Rocky, and Alma now. So a bunch that are branching off of this Red Hat thing. What else is there? Yeah, CentOS in here, scientific. It's a bunch of stuff. You're not going to use all these. You're not going to become familiar with all these either. The two other ones I want to talk about. The first one, I do want you to know about the Suse, the Suse, because you might not be located in the U.S. And from what I hear and from my experience, Suse, I'm going to say it different every single time I say it. Suse, OpenSUSE is a popular enterprise distribution overseas. I think I heard in Canada I heard overseas for sure. I think Canada maybe that way as well, like Sousaphone. Okay, that makes sense. But it is this is enterprise Linux as well. But they also have a desktop version that you can use. I've actually used this a number of times. I've used the desktop version a number of times in the past. I haven't worked with it, but like I said, it also there are other places in the US. I don't see this used a lot on the enterprise level, but a lot of other places in the world do use this. So I just want you to see it, to be familiar with it, know you might come across it in the workplace. And then the other branch is Arch. Okay, Arch, we got to talk about. Yeah, Alpine-based images. We'll talk about Alpine a little bit. I'll throw a little nod to Alpine in a second. But Arch Linux now. Arch Linux is an interesting one. I like Arch Linux. I like Arch Linux. I like distributions based on Arch Linux. Arch Linux has the ethos of give me the core essentials and allow me to configure my experience the way that I want to configure my experience. Okay, so by default, Arch gives you the kernel and it gives you an interface to start getting things installed and a way to start getting things installed. And it's up to you to know exactly what pieces of software you want and how to configure them. There's good and there's bad of this. One, once you're good, if you've ever configured your own Arch instance, you know you're good because you've learned a substantial amount of things, a number of commands. You have a good enough understanding of the suite of Linux tools that's available to you to be able to put together an experience that you need. And you need to be a bit of a power user to go through and do those things. You will run into issues that you have to resolve, but the benefits of this are that you get a clean Linux experience. You get exactly what you want. You don't get any bloat at all. And so these systems are often super quick, super fast, really nice to use. And again, they're set up exactly how you want to set them up. There's also ones that are easier to use that are Arch based. Things like Manjaro. I've used Manjaro a number of times. I like Manjaro a lot. I used to use something called Antergos. I loved Antergos. Antergos project is dead. Now I think there's Garuda Linux, which is a beautiful, I believe it's Arch based, and it'll give you a pretty dope looking desktop right out of the box. Garuda, but this might not be Arch based, but I think it is. But yeah, Garuda is pretty cool. But Manjaro is probably the biggest known one. But yeah, have you ever done Linux from scratch? I have not. NixOS, actually, so I've heard people talk about NixOS a lot. I've never used it. So I don't actually have no idea. It's a tool that unique approach, package management, system configuration. I've heard a lot of people talk about this recently, and it's not something that I've picked up. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so the chart's cool. You can feel free to just Google the Linux distro timeline so you can see how things have kind of branched off of each other. It's helpful to know, but the two distributions I want you to just in your mind to be able to separate and know that these are the two big ones in the workspace that you're probably going to come across are Debian-based distributions and Red Hat-based distributions. And we're going to talk about the differences between those and why that matters. Like I said, we're moving super fast tonight. There's not a ton of content tonight, which is great. So we can have all the conversation that we want. Debian was my first Linux other than Kali. Yeah, so Kali Linux, for those of you who don't know, the people who are interested in cybersecurity, Kali Linux is a great one. What are the other ones out there? Parrot, maybe? Is Parrot one? Parrot Linux, is that one for that? But if you're into pen testing and you want all of the networking tools, all of the pen testing tools and things available to you, Parrot Linux and Kali Linux are great for that. And so again, these are distributions that have been designed around with a specific use case in mind, with tools packaged up to help you be able to do things easily. Steam Deck is great. I want a Steam Deck so bad. I have one ordered. Valve has done so much great. Yes. So if I would be a 100% Linux user, if the gaming scene was a little bit better, it's getting there. The problem was, I told you all, the game that I used to play, I played tons of Overwatch. When Overwatch came out, if you all knew how many hours I put into Overwatch, and it just didn't run well, even with Proton, even with through Wine and all that other stuff, like it just didn't run well, and so I couldn't switch. But I would have been straight over to Linux full time. As Proton gets better, I'm going to give Linux more and more play. My video editing platform that I use is DaVinci Resolve, which actually runs on Linux. So, I'm good on that aspect. But yeah, I'll definitely try it out. Elden Ring, I haven't got on the Elden Ring train yet, only because time. Like I have so many other games that I've been trying to get into, but I will get into it eventually. I've been thinking of writing my own kernel with gambling integrated, something like 50-50 chance of getting that file handle. It's just deleting something. I've heard of these before. That's amazing. I love that. Yes, people have built operating systems like this before that really help you, that are designed to help you learn, that randomly delete things, or tools that you can install that randomly delete things, and it helps you go off and figure out how to troubleshoot and figure things out. I think it's dope. Overwatch is great on Linux, just some shader compilation issues. Okay, I'll check it out. It's been a while since I even tried. Let's see. Would you recommend this for software engineering too? 100% for software engineers. So I use Mac, Linux, PC. I'm a huge fan of Linux. Whoa. I think all software engineers need to have some base Linux understanding. I think that the first 3 weeks, the first 3 or 4 weeks of this course will be perfect for all software engineers. You need to know how to get around. You need to understand the commands that you're inputting. The tools and things that you're building, they're given to you. They're running via the command line. You will have to interact with things via the command line. And even if you're not working on Linux, these things, remember, Linux is Unix-like, so is Mac OS. And so a lot of these things will carry right over into the Mac world, and they will help you be a better developer. They will help you understand a lot of these things. Play Cyberpunk on Linux without issues too. I was one of the fortunate few to not have any issues with Cyberpunk. I also had a massively powerful computer, but it worked very well for me, and the game was fun. I didn't beat it, but the game was pretty fun. Really fun, actually. Yeah, anti-cheats don't work because the other game that I started to get into was Valorant. I'm awful. I'm absolutely, as the youngsters say, this is new to me, I'm absolute dog water. I'm dog water. I've been told that I'm dog water. That's how I know it's a term that you can use to talk about how terrible you are. But yeah, I'm pretty bad at Valorant, but I found Valorant to be fun. But the anti-cheat is just monstrous. So, you know, it's, yeah, probably never work at all. Yeah, we're learning about Linux. So we were just discussing Linux distros. We're about to move on from Linux distros, but yeah, we're just having some conversations about it. People sharing their insight, people sharing what they like. But like I said, y'all, I've been using Linux distributions for a long time. I'm a big fan of now the just install it and it works. And so Pop OS, like I said, Pop OS from System 76, and my experience has just been so comfortable for me to get a new computer, get another computer, load it on, and just be able to go straight to work and do the things that I need to get done. That's important to me now. So yeah, it is harder to get the perfect workflow because you got to change a lot. Their desktop environment is interesting. Their desktop environment is great for laptops. Whatever it's called, Cosmic or whatever, I think that's what it's called. Great for laptops. The gestures work incredibly if you actually take the time to understand what you have access to. I find it to be very, very helpful for desktop use. I don't know. I haven't gotten the keyboard shortcuts and stuff down yet, but yeah. Finally in the term. Yeah, when you hear a slang term and you don't know what it means. Yes, dog water. I guess dog water is nasty, or I don't know. Nasty in my day, nasty. If you were nasty at a game, I mean you were great. But apparently you suck. If you're dog water, if they say you're dog water, you suck. I've been told this way too many times. Wikipedia's chart saying Linux OS isn't based on anything but a package manager that sits on its own family tree. Interesting. It's just the kernel. So to me, that sounds like Linux OS is very much like Arch, where it's shipping with the kernel and it's giving you the tools to be able to install as much as you want. I like that. I like that a lot. I might have to check that out. Part of me wants to build the most tweaked out Linux setup. Yeah, key bindings, custom editor. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how I feel, Nintron. 100% how I feel. So if you're not on Reddit, what's the Unix porn? I know that sounds like I'm going somewhere bad, but if you ever want to see some crazy like Linux and Unix desktop customizations, this is why people like the openness of Linux. Choice. It's choice. It's not always the best, but it's choice. It gives you options. You can do what you like with it. You're not closed in to anything. But if you ever want to get some inspiration, like I said, I'm going to be putting out a video next week about understanding the Linux desktop and how to make these modifications and things. But if you ever want to be able to, get some inspiration, like look at this. What other operating system can you make your stuff look so good? Look at that. Who wouldn't want to work on this? Who wouldn't want to work on a computer that looks like, look at that. Amazing, beautiful, 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 beautiful. But yeah, Tuesday, Torn Blades. Tuesday is the day that videos are supposed to drop, I think. Yeah. Black background all the way. I'm with it. I go back and forth between crazy stuff and simple stuff. So right now, this computer is stationary, so I use Wallpaper Engine, and I just put up some cool wallpaper sometimes. I don't do this on my laptops, but on my desktops I have all kinds of weird crazy wallpapers. You know, I think it's fun to mess around with the computer. It's something that I'm using many hours a day, so I like to have a good time with it. But, you know, as I don't let that interfere with functionality. Functionality is more important to me than ever. So on my main computer, I I usually keep it as simple as possible. You should only go to that sub at your own peril. Makes me get into, yes, tuning my setup for a while until the itch dies off. Yeah. There was one day I had a significant amount of work to do, a really significant amount of work to do. And I just came to just check it out. And I saw something I never seen before. And I spent 3 hours trying to figure out how to do that. And then I spent the rest of the day, well, what's happening? Okay. I don't know what's going on. Am I being hacked? I don't know. But yeah, it's pretty dope. Oh, this wallpaper is from Wallpaper Engine, and it is called Cyber Hacker Room 4K. So you can probably get just the non-animated version if you just Google Cyber Hacker Room 4K. But that is what it is. Yeah, rain meter's a thing. I never spent a lot of time doing any Windows customizations, but yeah. Can these customizations happen with any distribution? Yes. Yes, they can. You can literally, because the distribution is just software packaged on top of one another, you can essentially take one distribution. I don't know why you would do this, but you can take one distribution and basically install all of the tools of another distribution and get similar, if not identical, functionality to things. I've seen people do it. It's really interesting. I don't know. It makes things a little bit confusing. But the main difference underneath, because it's just software, there's two main differences that I think most people will care about. The first is where things are on the file system, like where configuration files are at, and you know, where things are located. So like when you're used to going in and configuring things, you know, having an understanding of where things should be is important. The other big thing is package managers. So the things that allows you to easily install and configure software for the system. Red Hat based distributions use one, and Debian based distributions use another. And that, you know, understanding that and understanding how to use them is super duper helpful. All right, so let's keep going. Let me get off of here and let's keep it moving. I closed this because I was obviously being hacked. Maybe I don't know. I don't know what was going on with that, but either way, feel free to. Well, nope. I'm not gonna invite you guys to do anything, but I'll just blow this away and start over. So, all right, now we're up to virtualization. Okay, this is an important concept, especially for anyone trying to do the DevOps stuff, anyone trying to get into systems who doesn't understand this concept. It's pretty important because this is probably how most, well, not most because of phones and stuff, but a lot of Linux is run this way, and it's important to know. This isn't Linux necessarily, but it's, like I said, it's the way that a lot of Linux is run. So it's good. It's good that we talk about it. Virtualization runs the world. But it's OS inception. It's operating system inception, which means operating systems inside of other operating systems, basically. And so we can virtualize the running. We can basically virtualize a hardware computer. Okay, we can basically virtualize. That, you know, if we're working on a computer, we can basically virtualize a fake computer that we can run another operating system on inside of another operating system. It's a bit confusing. We'll draw some pictures. It runs via a hypervisor. So for virtualization, you need a hypervisor. What's up, good dude? It's good to see you. I'm doing good. There are two types of hypervisors, okay? Hypervisor is a good word to remember, make you sound smart in an interview. But there are two types that you should remember. The first is something called bare metal. The second one is called hosted. We're about to talk about the differences between them, but the hypervisor is the software needed to be able to virtualize systems. These virtualized systems are called virtual machines. That's pretty easy to remember. And there's a star next to containers. We're not going to talk about that. We aren't going to talk about that. I've had full-on arguments with people about this because of people's understanding of both of them. But yes. So is a hypervisor an OS itself? Maybe. Let's talk about the differences between the two. Let's draw a picture right here. So bare metal hypervisor. So you're probably used to something like this. Not that. This. Your computer as it is right now, your laptop, whatever you're watching on is, imagine this box is the laptop, okay? That's your lappy top. Okay? On your laptop is an operating system, okay? There's a piece of software that's an operating system. So whether it's Mac OS, Windows, or Linux, I'll put that here. And I'm just gonna put Windows just because Windows. All right, so Windows, I like Temple OS, it's great. And then inside of Windows, all your applications and stuff run, right? All the little, this is, Chrome, all this other stuff. Windows handles all that. Cool, that's how a normal computer runs. Windows, right here is actually installed on what's called the bare metal. So literally, there's the laptop. Imagine the laptop came to you fresh. Microsoft didn't have a chance to put anything on there yet. It was just the hardware. The hardware would have it'd have its BIOS on there. There would be nothing else really running. Windows is installed right on that bare metal. So a bare metal hypervisor is something that runs. Let's say this is a server instead of a computer, and the server is just a computer. It's just a computer, and it's designed, it has software on it, and it's designed to be able to serve content, but it's just a computer. It has the same pieces of, has the same parts of it that your own computer has. But instead of having Windows or Linux or Mac, it has a piece of software called a hypervisor that's installed, that's designed to be able to run other systems. And so if you've ever heard of something called like ESXi, it's like VMware. ESXi is a big one. There's one called like Zen. There are a bunch of other hypervisors that you can put on here, but basically instead of Windows or Linux, you would have something like ESXi installed here, and all that software would do would be there to help you manage and set up and work with virtual machines. And so then inside of that hypervisor is where you would install a Windows machine. I can't really write Windows in there. And you'd install a Linux machine and another Linux machine and another Windows machine in here. So that's type 1 hypervisor. The hypervisor itself is installed right on the bare metal. There's no other operating system. The operating system is the hypervisor. It's installed directly on the hardware. All right. Type 2, on the other hand, is called hosted. And this is where, like, your computer has Windows on it. So it's your laptop, which has Windows on it. And just like any other application on your computer, we can install a hypervisor like any other application. So I can install a hypervisor right in Windows. Just like this, just like Google Chrome, just like any other application you're used to installing on your computer. I can install a program that knows how to manage these things, and then that program can manage installing more virtual machines. Okay, so a bunch of computers that aren't real full computers. Now, here is type 1, you own it. Type 2, someone else owns it. Not quite. Yes, type 2 is like VirtualBox. That's literally part of the next slide that we have. But let's talk about the differences really quick. So you can imagine that a computer running inside of another computer probably is a little bit heavy. It's a little bit taxing. Computers have finite resources. There's a finite amount of memory that it has. There's a finite amount of disk space that it has. There's a finite amount of processing per second it can do. And so you got to be careful with this. But a bare metal virtualization system is generally more efficient than a hosted one. You can usually get more things on there, they'll run a little bit better because there's no underlying big operating system that we're used to like Windows or Mac OS. There's this lightweight system that's designed specifically around running and managing virtual machines. And so bare metal systems are usually used by enterprises, by organizations looking to get the most out of their hardware. They buy big servers, they take one big server, and you want to be able to do multiple things with that system. You don't want to spend $10,000 and get a system that can only do one thing. You want to be able to do as much as you can with that thing. And so as you need to, you divvy up the resources. You say, cool, I'm going to take this has 96 cores on it. I'm going to take a system. I'm going to make a system with 2 CPU cores. I have a terabyte of RAM on here. I'm going to take 64 gigs of RAM, and I'm going to take a couple of gigs of hard disk space. I'm going to make a system, a virtualized system that's designed to do this one thing, and I'm going to make another one that's going to do this other thing. And I can use it for multiple purposes that way. I can set up these networks and things that make it very easy to use. You can do the same thing on a hosted one, but remember, a hosted one, part of the computing resources on the computer are being used to run Windows or Mac OS or Linux, and to run the actual software that's being used to make the hypervisor. So it works a little bit differently. One that most people are used to. Hold on. Whoops. Clear. Escape. That most people are used to is VirtualBox. Okay. VirtualBox. It is a free and open source application, but it is a type 2 hypervisor. Type 2. Remember, this means it is hosted. This means I have to have Windows or Linux or Mac installed to be able to run VirtualBox. I have to download it inside of the operating system, and I have to install it, and then I can use it to create brand new virtual machines. You can create as many guest OSs as you would like, or as your computer can handle. Because remember, your computer has finite resources. Guest OS is the name. Guest is the name of the operating systems that aren't the main one that's running. So if it's your Windows machine, all of the things that you install inside of VirtualBox are guest operating systems. Your main operating system is called the host operating system. So one host operating system, as many guest operating systems as you'd like. It supports Linux, Windows, and Mac for the host OS. So, it can run on all 3 of those platforms. It doesn't matter which one you choose, you can run it. Can you run type 2 inside of a type 1? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. You absolutely can spin up you can use ESXi to spin up a Windows box and log into it and install VirtualBox on it and run it. You might run into some unintended consequences, but usually this works just fine. Absolutely. There we go. Verthium nested virtualization. It does work, and your performance may suffer. Exactly. Those were the unintended consequences I was talking about. But underneath the OS, there's still a kernel, right? Great question, DYM. Yes, underneath every operating system, there's a kernel, okay? Underneath every single one, there's a kernel. Every single one, there's a kernel. And so this is where, just because of that question, I'm just gonna throw this out there. It's not gonna make sense to most of you, but this is the difference between a virtual machine and a container. For containers, one of the biggest differences is that a container there is not a virtual machine underneath each operating system. There's one kernel. And all the processes, all of the things that spin up, all share the same kernel in containers. That's why you can spin up so many more of them. But in virtual machines, every virtual machine you create ends up having its own kernel installed. So you need some power, you need some space to be able to install each of these things. So think about virtual machines. Think about virtualization like an apartment building. Yes, you can live normally if things are bare metal, you can live on one big house. But as soon as you set up some virtualization, it's now like an apartment building. So each apartment building has all the things that you need to live. They've all got their own bathrooms, they've all got their own kitchens, they've all got their own living rooms, dining rooms, bedrooms. And so you got one gigantic building, that's the server of the system. And it's broken up into individual units where people can do self-contained living. That is exactly what virtualization is like. Who first coined the term container? I'm not sure, but it's been around for way longer than people know. But yeah, I'm not sure who first coined that. It is less possible to hop on a type 1 hypervisor than a top 2. I've seen some DEF CON talks where people hop out of a virtual machine to the host. Possible to hop onto a type. Oh, yes. Less possible. Yes, there are definitely some security implications to which one you choose as well. Most modern processors have virtualization options in the BIOS that will help with nested virtualization. Absolutely, that's very, very true. Is there a need for Vagrant when we have VirtualBox? So Vagrant actually works with VirtualBox. Vagrant's dope. Vagrant allows us to define what a virtual machine should look like and to be able to replicate it and to be able to spin it up very, very easily again and again. So they work together. They actually work together. They're not competing things. But Vagrant has a bunch of different backends, so you don't have to use VirtualBox, but it is something that you can do. All right, so normally the very first time we ever ran this course, virtualization is how we were gonna run this thing. We're not doing that anymore for 20 different reasons. And all of you who are familiar with Linux and virtualization already know some of the challenges here. I am not in the room with each of you. I can't coach each of you through the problems that you might have. But to get virtualization working on your system, you might have to first go into the BIOS and enable it. And so, you know, teaching someone who's brand new to this stuff to be able to go and learn how to restart their computer, especially the middle class, to be able to go and flip a switch in their BIOS, so it might be on a different page, is incredibly tough. And then VirtualBox, it can cause you pain. All of the hosted virtualization tools I've ever used can be painful if you don't know what you're doing. There's VMware Player, which is, you know, helpful as well, but they can cause pain. If you are familiar with VirtualBox or VMware Player, you are completely free to do that. Can you use Parallels on your Mac? I don't know enough about Parallels, if I'm honest with you. I think that you can. But I'm not 100% sure. Not 100% sure, but I have some other options for everybody. But maybe. Fortunately for Mac users, actually, let me hold on for a second. We're about to get into installation and how you can participate in the course. Dual booting, for people who are Windows or Mac, you can do something called dual booting. And so this is something I don't want you to look into right now, but I want you to be familiar with it and maybe throw it into something that you may want to do a little bit further down the line. Your computer can actually hold more than one operating system. And when you start your computer up, it'll ask you which one you want to boot into, and you can actually choose. And so it is something that you can do. You can do it on Mac. You can do it on Macs as well. Even if you have an M1, the M1 Mac doesn't work well with almost any Linux operating system right now, but there is one that was just that's pretty popular right now. I don't know the name of it. I gotta go look it up. But there is one that's out right now that appears to work really, really well on M1 MacBooks. You don't need to do any of these things. I just want to bring it to your attention, and as you start to go through Linux and you start to want to explore it a little bit more, I think this is a great way. Asahi, yeah, something like that. Let's actually look it up really quick. But dual booting is a great way to be able to explore and to figure some stuff out. Let's see, Asahi Linux. That sounds right. Yeah, it looks right. How do you kill time waiting for the CI/CD pipelines to finish? YouTube. YouTube, it can be very boring sometimes. Very, very boring. Yeah, so if you're on an M1 Mac, I've heard good things about this. It works pretty well. Yeah. But you can dual boot both Windows and Mac. Mac with Intel chips, you can install pretty much any distribution you want on there. I think they've solved the problem for most things. So yeah. Okay. So this is the big part. This is the big last part for today. Installation and really how you can participate in this course fully. One, the first and probably this is the easiest option is Linode. They are not a sponsor of this channel anymore. They were a long time ago. I haven't streamed it forever, but my free code still does work. So if you hit !Linode, if you've never used them before, I will show you how to get set up with that today. But you can grab a Linux server for free, for completely free, for 60 days. This is only a 7-week class. And so it'll like your free time will run out right at the end of it. But in the guide that comes back in the link, there is a code, or there's a link in there for, let me copy this. If you've never used their free stuff before, there's a link in here for free Linode credits. This $100 Linode credits. So you can click it. You can make an account. It does require a credit card, I think. I think it might not, but it's an option. I'm gonna spin up a Linode system in a bit. If you think this might be the way that you want to go, if you don't want to deal with setting stuff up on your computer, this is a way. If you're on Mac, if you're on Mac, you will be able to participate in a lot of the course without needing to install Linux, because remember, they're both Unix-like. There will be commands, there will be things that we do that do differ. So you can completely go through this course on a Mac, but again, some of the points you'll have to just conceptually understand, because mostly the command will be different. That's the issue. The command will be different. The file system will be different, and so things might be a little bit weird. They won't be exactly be one-to-one. If you think that you can fight through that, if you think that you can mentally navigate that, you're free to not install anything. You can simply open up the terminal application on your computer. If you can, I would recommend grabbing a Linode instance or setting up a virtual machine for you to work through. If you're on Windows, you have one other option that I would actually recommend, and that's what we're about to talk about now. But I'm gonna go through and I'm actually gonna set up a Linode instance so that you know exactly what things are supposed to look like. Just want to tell you about it. Take some time, get set up with an account if you need to, and then I'll go through this. The other option is VirtualBox or virtual machine. There are many videos on doing this. Again, you can run into a number of problems when trying to do this. Okay, you can run into a massive number of problems, or it can just work. And so I just want you to be careful of that. I'm trying to avoid the problems that we ran into the very first time we ever ran this. The best option was Linode. We ended up using Linode instances for the second time I ran it. People had way less questions because everybody was on the same page. For that, if you're on Windows, you can absolutely use WSL2. This is not something you can do on Mac. But if people don't know, WSL stands for the Windows Subsystem for Linux. Linux is so popular, Linux is so important that Windows will actually ship and give you a custom Linux kernel that lives right inside of Windows for you to use. It works very, very, very well now. WSL1 was okay. It was a good first attempt. WSL2 is absolutely phenomenal. It is what is. I mean this like, if anyone from Microsoft ever sees this, it is the reason why it's the reason why I've switched to Windows forever, like permanently. I used to literally use all 3 operating systems for my daily tasks, for whatever I needed to do. Windows now handles my gaming. Windows handles my content work, video editing and all that. It handles my development. It handles all my development tasks. WSL2 is great. Yes, exactly. If WSL didn't exist, I would not use Windows for my work. I would use Linux personally. Most people use Macs. I do use Macs still. I actually like Mac. But if WSL2 did not exist, I would not use it. WSL2 is great. I'm going to show you how to install WSL2 if you are on Windows. I think you just need to be on Windows 10 and up, and you can install this. They've actually done some cool things, and I think it's a one-liner to install it now. Your computer might need to be rebooted, but I don't have it installed on this laptop, so I will install it live for you here as well. Something to certainly look into. If you have a Windows machine, WSL2 is the way to go. I haven't tried dual booting in about 10 years. I assume it's improved since then. Yeah, the installers for these distributions have gotten so good, and it makes it much, much easier for sure. Using VirtualBox on Windows is like rolling dice. It sure is. It really is. And so yeah, I'll be using this. Oh, I've used Cygwin before. Okay, that's actually a good option too. So Cygwin, Cygwin and GitHub Desktop or whatever will install a little Linux virtual machine in there. Cygwin, I don't know what Cygwin, all the Cygwin has available, so it probably won't work for everything, but definitely for the basics, I think Cygwin would actually work. Windows Terminal is very nice and is absolutely my favorite terminal application. Period. Windows Terminal it's beautiful. I've been really impressed by Microsoft over the past few years. Really impressed. I understand people's disdain for Microsoft. I will tell you this, for all of you who are learning Linux and, you know, maybe getting a new computer soon. One, we talked about this the other day. If you just want something to learn with, and you're just looking for a do-it-all computer, I have M1 Macs. The M1 MacBook Air is the answer for price to performance to whatever you want to do. The M1 MacBook Air is the computer that you should just get if you just want to get something that's going to work, that you're not going to have to mess with. If you've been in the Microsoft game and you like Microsoft and you don't want to switch to Mac, because that's a big thing. I actually, Macs are great. I don't like Mac OS. I really don't like Mac OS, but they work well. Like, again, they work well, all that stuff. They look good. They perform extremely well. Battery life's absolutely amazing. But I don't like Mac OS. And so if you're someone who's been in Windows, the reason why my theory to why Mac has gotten so big, great product, absolutely. I don't want to take anything from them. But my theory on why people are switching to Mac is, for everyone's life, they've been given or used very cheap Windows machines, non-premium Windows machines their whole lives. Their parents purchased $200 Windows machines, $300 Windows machines with awful specs. Before before we went full SSD and all this other stuff, and they experienced a lot of bad things. If you've never experienced a premium Windows device, you've done yourself a disservice. Now, I'm not saying you need to. If you have money to get one computer and you want to learn how to program and all this other stuff, you are not going wrong with an M1 Mac. I also would encourage you all to try out some other things. The Surface line of devices has been the best computing experience I've had. I've had multiple Surface Pros. The Surface Pro 7 and 8 are phenomenal. I have a Surface Laptop Studio. I would actually still recommend just the Surface Pro. The Surface Laptop is great, but the Dell XPSs. My wife has had a Dell XPS 15, a high spec one for like 8 years, still running strong, still running fast like the day we bought it. ThinkPads are actually my favorite laptops. I actually just got her. She needed an upgrade so she could do some video editing, and I actually got her an XPS a P1 because the X1 Extremes weren't in stock. But I love ThinkPads. ThinkPads are my absolute favorite one. But again, I like rugged devices because I'm clumsy and I don't take good care of my technology. I should take better care of my technology. But yeah, I'm just saying that if you're someone who likes Windows, and you're comfortable in Windows, and you've been worried like, oh no, everyone who's doing development stuff is using a Mac, I have to switch to Mac. I'm not telling you not to. You can if you're interested in it, but if you're someone who doesn't want to, treat yourself to a premium Windows device. Dell XPS, there's so many of them, some really good ones now. Just do a little bit of research. If you were willing to spend, I'm so surprised that so many people will go from literally a $200 or $300 laptop to a $1,200 laptop. They'll buy a Mac and get a $1,200 laptop and be like, oh my gosh, this is so much better. And it's like, well, yeah, like of course it is. But again, it depends on what you're doing. Yeah, Everything all depends on what you're doing. Do your research, play around. I encourage you to play. That's also the reason why I encourage people to go for Windows devices. I think it allows you to explore a little bit more, to try things out a little bit more, to learn a little bit more. But hey, and if you want a game, exactly. If you want a game, a gaming laptop for work is great. If you want a game, go for it. Yes, $200 laptops also full of bloatware, but I'm just throwing that out there. I'm throwing that out there as my experience. I've had a lot of devices. People always ask me what laptops to get. Not a Mac hater at all. I genuinely think M1 Max, MacBook Air, specifically the MacBook Air. I had a 16-inch MacBook M1 Mac Pro. All that. I sold that. Just didn't need it. It was just, computers have just gotten so crazy. For me, I didn't really need it. The MacBook Air, you don't even need 16 gigs on the MacBook Air. 8 gigs will do most people just fine. It's pretty darn dope. This framework laptop, if you're into, if you're someone who gets a laptop and keeps it for a very long time and you want to be able to upgrade and repair things, this framework laptop is impressive. Very, very impressive. And if you just want to support a company, the reason I purchased it was to support the company. I did not need a machine, but I really like the ethos of the framework. Very, very impressive laptop. I'm so serious. System 76 is great. I've had a System 76 laptop. It's amazing. The framework is a significant step up in quality. It's impressive. It's impressive. Not gonna lie to you. It's very, very impressive. So, throw it out, just throwing different things out there. Look around, try some things out, have a good time, learn a little bit about what you're doing, and don't argue with people about which one's better if you ain't used anything. That's my pet peeve. People argue with me people ask me what I use. I tell them I use Windows. People tell me, Macs are better. Okay, yeah, it may be for you. It might be. They're all tools. Don't matter. But don't argue with people if you don't know why you're using it. Great. Yes, they're all gonna be good. Congratulations. But yeah, okay, so those are your options. All right, so I'm gonna do two things right now. I'm going to first get a system installed through Linode. Okay. Then I'm going to install WSL2 on my computer. So again, if you're on Windows, you can do both of those things with me if you like. For the course though, I probably will use, it doesn't really matter. They're both the same. I'll probably use WSL. I don't know. I might use the Linode machine. It depends on what distro we choose. And I'll actually let you choose. I'll let you all choose the distro. Because we'll actually have times where we might spin up multiple distros, but yeah. So let's do that. Let's go with Linode first, and then we can keep going. 16x10 is great, especially if you're a gamer. 4x3 is better for work. It's better for work. It really, really is. The framework I think is 4x3, pretty sure, and I think most of the Surface devices are 4x3 or something close to that. Really, for work, it's better. Now for consuming content, it's not. Okay, so I'm gonna log into my Linode account, and hopefully, I haven't logged into Linode in a long time. I'm gonna be honest with y'all. I hope I don't owe them money. let me be very clear. I hope that I can log in and not owe them money. There we go. That's why I said I hope I owe them money, because I did owe them money. And I haven't used my Linode account just in so long. I didn't even know I owed them money. And so I went in to make a payment a couple hours ago, more than 2 hours ago, and it says it's successfully made. So, just throwing it out there. Sorry, Linode. It took me a long time to get you your funds, to get you your ends. That was my bad. Because I had a lot of stuff running because I was doing like a demo or something. But all Linode is a cloud provider. They're a cloud provider. But a developer-friendly cloud provider. I actually like Linode a lot. If you ever use DigitalOcean, they're the same. So if you prefer DigitalOcean, you can use that as well. It doesn't really matter what you use. You can use Amazon Lightsail. Again, you can get free credits this way, so feel free to use those free credits. But all this is doing is this is going to allow us to rent a virtualized Linux machine. So as far as you're concerned, it's a normal computer, because it kind of is, but this is going to allow us to spin up a Linux instance. And the only reason we care about it is because we want to be able to interact with Linux in its truest native form. And so that is why we're gonna start with this, and then I'll show you how to do WSL2. And if you have any, if you can't do either one of those options or you're on Mac, I can help provide some resources. So hold your questions about those two things. Before we're done, ask all the questions that you need to ask to get yourself set up. There's a lot of stuff we can do. If you decide you want to go with the virtual machine route and you want to do VMware or something like that, or you want to do VirtualBox, let me know before the stream is over. I can paste in some resources and things that will help you get started. Again, you have Discord, you have places to ask to get help when you do run into problems, or if you should run into problems. So feel free to do it however you want to do it. Scott, thank you for the MacBook Air recommendation. Needed a MacBook, but I didn't know where to start. Yeah, Air, like seriously. And you can find deals. You can find deals on them too, like really find deals on them. You can find refurbished ones and stuff. Like they're really solid. If you are someone who's used to Windows battery life, that's the only place where I will give the full concession of Mac. You done it. You beat our tails. Is battery life. The first time we use an M1 MacBook Air or Pro, and you genuinely work on it all day. You genuinely do work on it all day, and you still have 40% battery life. Like, it's crazy. It's absolutely nuts. But yeah. Oh, thoughts on Chromebooks? Love Chromebooks, even if you are a developer. The world. So I'm still living in the past. I like to have things natively running on my system. We don't need to be in that world anymore at all. The original tech lead for the project, when I first joined the company Fearless back in 2016, the tech lead on the project got rid of his MacBook and got a Chromebook Pixel and did all of his work from a Chromebook Pixel, all his development, everything with AWS, everything with a Chromebook. I think Chromebooks are the answer for any non-developer, like most non-developer students. I don't know why you would not you get a MacBook or something if you just have the money to, but a decent Chromebook does literally everything that you would need, because everything's in the browser now. Everything can be done online. I'm a huge fan of Chromebooks. Huge fan of Chromebooks. If you ever have to if anyone older ever asks you for a computer recommendation, get a Chromebook. If a kid ever needs something, Chromebooks. They're great, 100%. Is the Pro just overkill? The Pro and the Air are almost exactly the same now. The M1 chip made them almost the same. So the only difference is the Pro has a little bit bigger battery and better cameras. The M1 Pro, you don't need the M1 Pro. Like the M1 Pro chip, not the M1 MacBook Pro. I know it's confusing, but the M1 MacBook Pro, the M1 Pro chip MacBook Pro, you don't need that. You don't need it. You just don't need it. Had bad battery life, yeah, with old Dell laptop. We all have. You can SSH into another server or computer. Yeah, that's what we're gonna do. Never had a Chromebook that lasts longer than a couple of years. The batteries are so bad. Yeah, that's fair. That's definitely fair. I think Chromebook tech has come a long way too. There's some really nice ones out there, but yeah. All right, so Linode, all you got to do, real easy. One, and actually that guide I gave you, if you do ! Linode, that guide will help you through exactly what I'm doing here, but you don't have to do all the steps. All you got to do is I changed the DPI on my mouse and it got real low for a second. All you got to do is this first part, the create a Linode and connect to it. Is if you need help afterwards or you're having trouble while we're doing what we're doing now. So let's do it. Let's do it real quick together. I'm going to create a Linode. And when you hit create Linode, it's going to start to give you a bunch of options. And look at that. We just talked about this earlier, a distribution. Remember, that's the Linux kernel with software packaged up over top of it to give you a certain experience. So we should do, I'm going to do, these are ones that I made, I think. Oh, no, they're not. We should do, we're going to do Ubuntu. We're going to do Ubuntu. And then later on, we'll do a CentOS one. So we're going to do Ubuntu. I haven't messed with the new LTS. I'm assuming there's enough packages out. Like everything's, been updated. That's the one we're going to do. It's okay if you don't do this one. Most everything should be the same. We're not doing anything crazy where the version should matter all that much, so you don't have to worry about that. If you already have a VM and you're using something older, it's okay. We're going to be focusing on core Linux skills and concepts that should work pretty much across the board. There have been some changes to Linux networking concepts and stuff in recent years, so that's a little bit different. I actually learned that the hard way the last time we did Waddle. Sometimes it's hard to keep up with some of this stuff, but I'm going to use Ubuntu 22.04. More information to just fill out your knowledge. The Ubuntu version scheme, the first number is the year that it came out. So 22 says this was released in 2022. The .04 is the month. So it was released in April, just released. The LTS means long-term support. Okay, so these will be supported. They'll get updates and things for a long time. People use LTS versions if they want a stable system that they don't have to upgrade for many years. And so Ubuntu is on a 2-time per year release cycle. So you'll see the 10s and the 4s, so October and April. So each year there's 2. So back in 2021, there was 2104 and 2110. And the year before that, there was 20.04. There was also a 20.10. Not really sure why it's not listed here. Or they don't have any of the other non-LTS versions here, but every year, 1604, 1610, 1804, 1810, 2004, 20.10. Just a lot of people don't know that. I like to, let people know that. So I've been using Linux since 7.04, I think was the first one I ever used. So been a while. It's crazy to see it go from 7 to 22, but yeah. And that's specifically for Ubuntu. It's not for anything else, specifically for Ubuntu. Region. If you were on Camp Cloud 2 days ago, you know that there's different places around the world. There's different data centers around the world that you can put these things in. And so Atlanta, Georgia is closest to me. I'm in Baltimore, Maryland. Pick the one that's closest to you. You can put it anywhere and it will be fine, but you'll get the fastest response, the least amount of latency if you put it somewhere that's close to you. So I'm gonna click Atlanta, Georgia. And now you have $100 in free credit, so you can do this however you'd like. I am going to choose, this is going to be the size of the instance that you are using, okay? This is going to be how many computing resources would you like? And so dedicated 4 gigs, that's going to give me 4 gigs of RAM, 2 CPUs, 80 gigs of storage, more than enough. We don't even need that much. That's for a dedicated CPU. So we're not going to use any of these. What I want you to do is I want you to click shared CPU because you don't need this. Shared CPU. Look at that. Goes down to $5 a month. Much better, much better. And this is all you need. We're not doing anything intensive at all. 1 CPU, 25 gigabytes of storage, 1 gig of RAM, all we're gonna need. If you're feeling fancy, you have $100, you can go up, but I'm gonna just get a singular nanode 1 gigabyte. All good, that's all we need. Give it a label. So this is for you. This is to give it a name. I'm gonna call this Waddle May 2022. You can call it whatever you want. You can call it that exact same name if you'd like. This is for you. This is for you to be able to see and identify your instance inside of your Linode account. Give it a tag. You don't need a tag. I'm not going to give it a tag. Root password. This is important. This is going to be the password that you use to log in to the system. And now you're learning your first real Linuxy thing. Root. You've probably never heard of the word root before. Root is the systems administrator. It's the super user, the admin account for the computer. So your root password, you're gonna make it whatever you want. I'm gonna make it relatively simple. I'm not using the suggested because you can see the suggested. Yeah, let's go with that. Fair. You should use password managers. I'm a big fan of password managers. You should use a password manager to be able to generate you a secure password, but I'm not gonna do that in this instance. I wanna know what it is. Cool. SSH keys, you're gonna learn about SSH keys throughout this program, but we're not gonna worry about it right now. Yeah, we're not gonna worry about SSH keys right now. You just need a password. So all you're gonna need to log in is that. Don't forget that password. The good thing is, with a temporary, well, with a virtual machine like this, if you forget, you just blow it away and spin up a new one. It's the cool part about virtualization. What are SSH keys? So SSH stands for secure shell, and SSH keys allow you to be able to authenticate with a system without passwords. So basically, what will get created is basically a lock and a key file. One goes on the server, you have the other one, and as long as you have that key, as long as you have that file that has that information, you can log into this system with it. Yes, it is an encryption. I mean, it isn't, the file that you created is an encrypted file, but that's what it's for. So SSH keys allow you to be able to authenticate with a server or a system without a password. VLAN, you don't gotta, yeah, it's more secure. It is much more secure than password. So there's a lot of like AWS, even if you're using Lightsail, they won't even allow you to log in with password. It is only SSH keys. You have to log in via SSH keys. Attach a VLAN, don't worry about VLAN. We will talk about VLANs as well in this course. You don't need backups. You can if you want, but you don't need backups. You don't need a private IP. Actually, click private IP. You don't need it, but it doesn't cost anything, and there's things we can learn with it. Yeah, click private IP for sure. And then you just create your Linode. All right. So I created it. Now you all know exactly the IP address of my instance. That's fine. You don't know my password. You could hack it. I don't care. I'll kill it. There's nothing here for me. What does private mean in context? Static IP address? No. So there are they're kind of two addresses the system can get. It can get a public IP address, which is networked out to the entire world. And so this is my public IP address. This is the one that anybody can get to. A private IP address is an internal network that only allows systems that are on an internal network to connect to. So it'll basically have two different methods of contacting it, and basically nothing from the outside, nothing outside of Linode's network would be able to use that internal IP address to really do anything. So it gives internal systems a way to communicate in a way that's different from this external IP address. My password is Hufflepuff. Give it a go. Give it a go. Don't get me locked out. I don't know if this automatically locks you out or anything like that. Yes, also people wouldn't be able to find the private IP, but even if they had the private IP, I can give you the private IP. I'll log in, I'll give it to you. You can't do anything with it. You're physically not networked in a way that you can do anything with it. Well, actually, you would be from your machine, from your probably from your Linode machine. You probably could do something. Yeah, more trusted route in between rented machines. Yes, correct. You got it. That's a great way of saying it. Do we need an SSH key? No, you don't. You don't need an SSH key. And so this is the interesting part now. It's okay, I have a Linux system. How the heck do I use it? How do I get into it? How do I get into my Linux system? And so I love Linode for giving you the way, if you didn't already know. So this is something called SSH. It's a protocol called SSH. I will spend time explaining it to you. We're going to get there, but you can literally copy this command. SSH root at. I'm going to break it down for you in a second. All right. If you're on a Mac, you can open up the application called Terminal. So hit was it command spacebar, type in the word terminal, and open up your terminal application. On Windows, you can actually use if you're on Windows 10 or 11, you can use your command prompt or PowerShell. So either command prompt or PowerShell, your choice. And then if you have, I'm going to download Windows Terminal. You can do Windows Terminal. If you're already on Linux, you can just use your terminal application as well. So all you got to do is paste in the command that you got. So I'm going to copy this again, and I'm simply going to paste it. A lot of people don't know that Windows does have built-in SSH now. It's not a well-known thing. Fun fact, if you, one of the reasons why when we were talking about the different operating systems, and someone else said it first, but I also agreed that if before Windows came out with WSL2, we would not do our work from a Windows machine. Just because Windows missed a lot of development tools like SSH. You used to have to use a program called like PuTTY to do so. And so you used to have extra steps to be able to do something like this, but not anymore. Windows has native SSH built right into it. What's happening here? I don't know. There we go. Okay. So what you're going to do is you're going to paste it in, whether you're on a Mac, whether on your Windows, whatever. I still install PuTTY. That's okay. Yeah, you know SSH was there. Most people don't. You can do it in PowerShell as well. But yeah, it is OpenSSH. I had to install it on Windows feature, but yeah, perfect. What this is doing now, I'm going to break down. Actually, let me do this in PowerShell because I think PowerShell can be, I think you can control plus PowerShell. Something's happening. I don't like it. Okay. No, you can't. You can't control plus PowerShell either. You know what? Hold up. Let me get Windows Terminal really quick because I know you can do it in that. Oh, this is another reason when people ask me why. Oh, I have Windows Terminal. Dope. People have asked me why I don't do all of my coding and stuff on my big beefy computer, because I do a 2 PC stream, and they're like, oh, you got that big powerful computer. Why don't you do stuff on there? It has a lot to do with stuff like this, and bandwidth is a big problem I ran into early on in the streaming game. Is we need to download something. If you're downloading on the same stream that you're on the same computer that you're uploading from, man, I used to break my stream unintentionally all the time. Yeah, something I learned the hard way. Now I can separate out those connections. So stuff like that, you learn a ton. But people ask me that all the time, like, oh, why do you have two computers if you have the powerful one? Well, if I need to install something and reboot, another thing. But so when you hit SSH, this is what happens. Let me break it down for you first before I type in anything. SSH is your first Linux command that you're learning. It's a command, stands for secure shell. Okay. Here's what it does. So that initiates the command. And so this isn't even Linux. I'm on Windows, but on Linux is the same thing. So this is the command. Then the next thing, this root. Remember I told you this is that super user. This is the administrator of the computer. So root is the name of that super user. So on all Linux computers, root is the name of the super user of the computer. It doesn't mean that's what you're going to use to log in with, but root is usually something you can log in with. And then right here is something called the IP address. The IP addresses are how computers know where other computers are over a network. It's how when you go to google.com, you don't know what's going on, but in the background, your computer is going off and it's getting an IP address to go to. And so every website that you go to, everything has an IP address, and that tells your computer how to get to it over a network. And so this is saying, using the secure shell protocol, head over to this IP address and attempt to log in with this username, okay? And so what it's going to do is it's going to attempt to log in as this user. And so what we're seeing here is it's saying, hey, this is weird. I don't really know this IP address. I don't have a fingerprint for this thing. Are you sure you want to connect? My computer is basically saying, I don't know what this system is. It's new to me. I've never connected to the system before. Are you sure you would like to connect to that system? And so this will always happen the first time you attempt to log into a brand new system via SSH. And again, you don't have to worry about memorizing this right now. We are going to learn all about SSH. We'll spend tons of time on this. So I'm just giving it to you very quickly to get you up to speed. And so if you type in yes, it says, hey, I'm going to permanently add this fingerprint to my list of hosts. It's going to say, cool, you said you want to do it. I'm going to save this computer so I know, so next time we go there, I'm not confused. Now, It didn't work. It didn't actually allow me to log in. The reason is I took too long. I just took too long to do anything. So I'm gonna do it again. It doesn't give me that same error. It says, hey, type in your password. Remember that root password that we put in the Linode interface? Well, right here is where we are going to type that in. You will not see it typing, okay? It's not gonna type. It's gonna look like you didn't type in anything. That's super weird to get used to at first, but for passwords in Linux, it will never show you typing. And when I hit enter, I am now in the system. And how do I know? It's a bunch of text. How do I know? The way that I know is it says, welcome to Ubuntu 22.04. And it gives me information about the system that I'm on. It gives me a welcome message, a message of the day. We'll talk about this message of the day later as well, but this is how you know, and it will now say root at localhost. You don't need to worry about what that means right now. That's one of the first things that you'll learn next class, next week, okay? So, I am now logged into a remote Linux machine. Most of the time, we're going to talk about GUIs and CLIs, but this is the command line interface, and this is how we'll be learning how to interact with Linux. I know it's confusing, but that's what this whole course is about. This is how you do it. This is how you interact with it, and it is an invaluable skill. It's pretty easy. It's surprisingly easy to do. It's a lot of command memorizations, but you will feel, I'm not joking, you will feel smart. Next class, next week, next Thursday, you will feel smart. I like teaching people Linux, and I think people like to learn Linux because there's a lot of instant feedback. There's a lot of, hey, we're gonna do this, and when we do it, this thing's gonna happen. And the things that are happening are relatively easy to understand, and it kind of just makes sense for the most part. So, I think you're gonna feel excited. People who are brand new to it, I think you're gonna get pretty excited by what we do. I know these words last year, like speaking a foreign language. Exactly. Will we be learning regular expressions? Funny enough, we will. There's a bash scripting portion at the end, and we are actually going to spend about a half an hour on regular expressions. I have been in the industry for years, 12 years, around 12, 13 years. I'm still awful at regular expressions, but yes. Big Star Wars, Telnet Energy, 100%. Yes, 100%. Okay, so now you're in. You don't have to do anything with this system. If you want to get out, all you do is type exit. And now I am out. That's all you have to do. You don't have to cut this machine off or anything. It's there. Just leave it. Okay? Just leave it. You're good to go. So that's the first way. So that's how you get set up with Linode. And again, if you do exclamation point Linode, it will tell you the instructions on exactly how to do what I just did if you weren't able to go through and do it. Now I'm going to get WSL2 installed so you can see that. People who know regex are still trying to learn regex. Absolutely. Anyone who says they're an expert at regex cannot be trusted. I agree 100%. One simple question. Why use bash when there's Python out there? Super cool dude. This is one because bash is the native way to interact with the system that you're on. I say, why add the complexity of running bash in a Python script? Like, oftentimes when you write a Python script to do the same things, you're gonna have to write bash in that Python script, usually, not always. And so again, simplicity. I think simplicity, I think there's a lot of things that don't need the complication, or don't need the value that an interpreted language like Python gives you. Bash is pretty darn powerful. But if you want to use Python, I use Python for scripts all the time. So like, I don't feel like bash is better than Python or anything like that. I just don't think every task warrants you having to write a Python script. If you are a place that wants to keep consistency, you don't want anyone, you don't want people to have to go back and forth between the two. I think that makes sense. I think it's okay to say, hey, write everything in Python. But again, a lot of times you're going to end up having to write bash in your Python script anyway, which is, to me, is annoying. So why not just write it in bash? But it's choice. They're all just tools. Use the one that works for you. Hey, whatever you used, if it works, great. Like, I don't even care if it works well. It doesn't. Did you get it working? Cool. Best regex pattern, avoid them as much as you can. Jeffrey Friede's mastering regular expressions. I'll check that out. Zero to hero. Cool. I need that. Definitely need that. Yes, Linode, it is far easy. It's pretty easy. I'm a fan of Linode for sure. So Linode, if you want to, you want to sponsor again, I'm here. Let's see. How to exit the matrix, type exit. See, again, pretty simple. You can also hit Control D. There's a couple of different ways you can do it, but a lot of what we're going to be learning, the commands and stuff in Linux, are pretty simple. They really are pretty simple. It's just getting used to all the reading and interacting with the computer in a way that you never have interacted with a computer. But yeah, Python may not be installed on the system you're working on. Absolutely, that's very true. Bash will mostly be available 100%. That's a big reason as well. Awk I love Awk. Awk is super duper helpful. And I'm still not an Awk pro, but for a little while I was. For a little while I learned a lot about Awk, and I was able to use it for a lot of things, and it made a lot of my life a lot easier. And then I stopped using it for a while, and I'm not as good with it. I have to always look up stuff, but yeah. Python was the first language I learned. Great first programming language to learn. Python's super dope. Pretty easy to learn as well in comparison to everything else. Use the best tool for the job. Very simple. Figuring out what's best for the job in current situations seems like a good skill to have. Yes, it takes time. That takes time. You don't need to. It takes time. It also takes playing around with things, to actually using things, exploring. Knowing what's best for the job it takes time. It takes time, but it is very, very helpful. Just started studying for your Linux Plus. Great timing. Excellent, Thaddeus. I love it. Keep us informed on the journey. Sudo apt install cmatrix, enter your password, and then the cmatrix. You'll be happy. I'll look up what cmatrix is, and then to enter the matrix. I'm gonna try that. First language I took was Quick Basic. I don't want to say it's a back in the day language, but it's a back in the day language for sure. Sherman Tank. Yeah, my first. What's interesting, what's so interesting about programming is I went to school. I didn't finish, but I went to school and I got weeded out in the very first programming weed out course. And then in my career, I had done bash scripting. And I was a systems administrator who was like, "Oh, never, I'm avoiding learning how to code. I will not learn how to code." And then someone showed me that I was basically coding. I was like, wait, you're telling me that all I'm gonna have to do in Python is the same thing? Like I'm just like loops, like variables, loops, all like I was doing all that stuff already, functions, and they were like, yeah, like this is like the same thing. And I was very upset about that because I had gotten into this weird angry state where I was not going to learn how to program, but I was basically programming. And so it was actually a pretty easy transition for me from Bash to Python. And Python was the first language I learned as well. But like I told you all in Camp Code, I did not feel like I knew how to code until I learned Go. So I was coding with Python and I knew what I was doing, but I didn't like learning Go, learning a compile. I think learning a static compiled language with all the rules helps you to be a better programmer because you now have to think about what you're doing much more. You have more of an understanding of what's happening, the inputs and the outputs, and what's going on in the code. And so that's why I'm a big fan of learning one of those first. And I think that Go or C# is what you should learn first. And people again tend to want to stay away from the Microsoft stuff. So Go it is. I'm working with QA for slowly self-studying Python, eventually move on to automation development role. Your channel is dope. I appreciate that. Dope. Why you do your Python course? Exactly. So Shaman Poo, exactly. Like for any material you're going to use to learn, like it's okay to use something just a little bit. It's okay to have something on the background. It's okay to pick up various amounts of information from all kinds of different places. Immerse yourself in it. I love what you're doing. You're going to be wildly successful. If you're investing in yourself that much, you're doing your Python course, you're listening to this, that's how you do it. You will get to a point where you're good enough for the first role. Once you get the first role, it's all good from there. Yes, you'll still have to learn. Yes, you'll still have to work, but it gets much easier to do so. Hardest language I had in college was assembly. Absolutely, headaches every day, 100%. I've only seen a bit of assembly, and I'm like, nah, I'm good. Turbo Pascal, I'm good on that too. I don't want any piece of Pascal at all. Pro tip: if you're paid hourly, do the job in assembly. That's right, do it in the language that's going to take the longest for sure. Static compiled language equals lower language. So generally yes. And for most languages that's the case. For things like Go, I mean, yes, I do consider, because Go has all the fancy stuff, like, you know, no garbage collection. It has garbage collection and stuff, so like it's not as low, like it's not super low in comparison to something like Python, but there are rules. There are rules. There's explicitness that I think I think is very helpful to help you know what the heck is going on. Like, man, there's so much Python and JavaScript and Ruby magic that like it's hard to really know what's happening half the time, because you're learning methods rather than how to really program. That's how I felt, at least. I felt like I was learning methods and what the methods did rather than what I was actually doing. And so, it is what it is. Why not JS? So let me be very honest and clear with everybody. Most people get upset with me, especially DevOps folks, when I say this. I was on a team that was building a Node application, and so just in case we did all of our automation in Node.js as well, and just in case one of the programmers wanted to get in and be able to contribute to it. And I found it to be surprisingly good, particularly with the addition of TypeScript. I think it's great. My problem with JS is NPM and it's just the package management. There's just so much cruft that you get out of it. But yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with any of the languages, to be honest, except for Java. Java's just too verbose, man. Lots of jobs. I'm not a Java fan. Would I say C# is harder than Go? A little bit, just a little bit. I think that Go has a focus on simplicity, and I think yes, I think it's harder. I do think it's harder. I don't think it's a crazy amount harder, but I do think it's harder. Go, Java, which one is better? Again, better is a tough word for me. I prefer Go because Java is more verbose. Go is, I think, syntactically simpler. Yeah, I think Go is simpler. I think Go is better in most scenarios, personally. I also just hate Java because I've had to manage the JVM, the virtual machine that Java runs on, so much, and it causes me all kinds of problems as someone who's managing the JVM. But yeah, I prefer Go. My COBOL teacher was hard. Yeah, hey, well, first off, Cammy, if you know COBOL, I hope you're out here in the world making absurd amounts of money for the people who need you, because they will pay you a whole lot. I just saw a COBOL job the other day where they were paying up to $310, and I was like, I should go learn a little bit of COBOL. I maybe should go learn a little bit. I said lower in quotes because in reality the language, you're right though. Have I used Pulumi at all? Yes. I actually spent a few months, a very short stint at a company, and they use Pulumi, and I like it. I like Pulumi a lot. I think Pulumi's issue, though, I like Pulumi a lot. I really do like Pulumi a lot, and I actually want to dive deeper into it. I think the problem, though, is that AWS has the CDK now, and Terraform has the CDK for Terraform. So I don't know. I think it's gonna be tough for Pulumi to compete with that, but I think they're doing fine. But I think Pulumi's dope, definitely dope. I'm a big fan. We'll get to my thoughts throughout this course. You can ask me about my opinion on all these things. I'm a huge fan now of, if you can, writing your application code in the same language as your infrastructure code. So Pulumi and CDK, all that is my new found interest. I'm not amazing. I haven't had enough usage with them yet to be really good at them, but I do prefer that paradigm, and I have built things with them. But I definitely have some, you gotta think a little bit different. And so I like the paradigm though. PyScript, I don't even know what PyScript is. Definitely don't know. Unity C#, if I didn't even know it was different. But Unity's dope. I like Unity a lot. I want to build something one day. Transition. Oh, basically we've done all of the, like, today was a short class. So like we've done all the big stuff. I'm gonna get WSL2 installed, but it's literally a one-liner. I'm pretty sure now, 1 or 2-liner. And so we can have these questions. Time to learn COBOL. It is 310 doesn't sound that much considering it's a dead end job. Well, I that's fair, but also like I'll take it. I'll take it. Lots of people don't know COBOL anymore, but a lot of places, there are a surprising amount of places who still need it. 3 years at 310, well invested. Exactly. That is how I feel. 3 years at 310. I've been, I certainly have not had the highest tech salaries. I come across people all the time making way more than I've been able to earn in my career. But like, I genuinely, and again, it always changes every time you reach a new echelon of pay. I'm really surprised anyone. I have a wife and now a daughter. I don't know. I don't know what I would never need, even if the job was the most stressful. I'm always working. I don't think I would ever need more than like 210 max. I like 210 max at, like, for the hardest job in the world. I don't need more than 210. Now, if anybody out in the world ever, if you heard this and you are hiring and you're paying more than that, ignore everything I just said. I would like as much as you're willing to give me, and I'm going to ask for more than that because. But like, I just thank you. I appreciate it. I just for where I live. Also, it has to do with where you live and everything like that. Like, so I was able to, there was a time where my wife was in full-time, she wasn't working full-time in a master's program, and I feel like we were still doing, like, I think I was making 100, maybe like 120, 100, maybe a little bit less than that, maybe like 115, and again, that was before, I have more bills now, but like, I felt, we were paying for school out of pocket. My rent was pretty cheap. I hadn't run up, like, I didn't have very much debt. And I just felt so rich. Like, I felt like I didn't, I couldn't do anything I wanted, obviously, but like, it was easy. It was easy at the time. And I know everyone's situation's different, but I just can't see like needing, I've come across people, because I help get people hired. I've come across people who are like, I need 250. And I'm like, need? You need 250? Like, need? Do you have 17 kids? I need it, but I understand. Hey, I understand it. I get it. I get it. That's just me. Again, I'm just giving y'all my fun. I'm not knocking anybody for what they want, for what they need. I'm just giving you my life story. Like, yeah, if you're in Cali, first off, I went to go visit a friend out in Cali. He had a baby. I went to go visit him. I hadn't seen him in a while. And we got out to Cali before prices got crazy right now. And I feel like I saw gas was, like, this was before, gas must have been $3 something here. I think there was like $5 or $6. And like, I almost had a heart attack. As someone who drives a lot, like, that's my thing. Like, if you're out in Cali, man, y'all are better than me. Better than me. Hire managers, do not listen to this man. Take the number you are and 2 times it, 100%. We'll talk about getting hired as well. Ask for the moon. Ask for the moon. Yeah. I need 250 too. Don't check my finances. Just trust me. You're right. You're right. You're right. 17 kids. You mentoring. What's up, C Walker? Thanks for coming through. All my Learn with Leon folks. Oh, man. Again, if you're not following, we got the Leon emote in there. Got to give him a shout out again. Learn with Leon. Again, I'm starting to really love Twitch because so many more people are on here teaching new things. Like, there's just so many opportunities to, like, just get in with people. People, I've seen people get jobs from other people on streams and stuff, and I've seen people say, hey, I'm looking for a job in this, and someone reach out with a job, and hey, I think it's really great that people are, able to, we're forming this community. It's dope. It's dope. I'm paying $6.25 per gallon right now in SoCal. Unacceptable. It's not unacceptable, but man, it's like, I think you Cali folks are actually luckier than the rest of us because you were already used to the high gas prices. So like new high gas prices, I feel like it's less of a shock, but like gas is so I'm fortunate that I have this Mini Cooper. It takes a premium though, which sucks, but it gets really good gas mileage if you want it to, because as someone who doesn't need to drive and is fortunate enough to be in an industry where we get paid enough to be able to afford changes like this, like, if you have to fill up your tank once or twice a week, like, the gas prices are really killing. Like, they will kill you, especially if you don't have a super fuel efficient car. Like, man, like, gotta be stressful for people right now. So, I'm hoping, look, keep going in this stuff so it doesn't matter quite as much. But yeah, I feel people's pain for sure. Here in Baltimore, I thought that 350 was expensive at the time. Exactly, that's what I thought. Ask for the money, ask for it. Yo, what's up? That's the second T-Pain thing we got. Hey, now we're gunning for him. Like I said, I'm cool with that. I hope to one day be a rundown T-Pain, because T-Pain, one, he's that guy. Also, if y'all didn't know, T-Pain streams on Twitch, and his stream is very entertaining. So if you ever want to follow him, check him out. It's very entertaining for sure. I work from home, so high gas prices, aren't too bad. Yep. Isn't premium gas a scam? No. Very interesting. So for most cars, it is. When they talk about cleaning your engine and all that stuff, no. And this is just, here's me going into my car talk for you all. So octane. People don't know what octane is. We're fortunate enough here in Maryland to have 93 octane as our max octane rating. There's 87, 89. 87 is the regular gas, 89 is mid-grade. Some places 91 is the highest octane. Here in Maryland, a lot of places on the East Coast, 93 is the highest octane. For higher compression engines, higher octane is better. All the octane means is that there's a little bit more energy per the same space in this fuel, and it must get hotter before detonating, and that's the key. So for engines that are higher compression, that are putting out more heat, higher performance engines, you don't want gasoline to detonate before it's actually been ignited. And so lower octanes will actually ignite in a super hot engine too early. You'll get something called knock. You will ruin your engine. You'll ruin your engine. You can ruin your engine. So for higher performance cars, for some engines, it's better. Otherwise, it's a bit of a scam. Need a mod to ban some toxic chatters. I agree. I'm gonna go through in a little bit, and I do have someone who is gonna do some modding for me. We've been super lucky on here for a long time, not having to have a mod, but we'll get there. It's all good. Ava Miata, we can handle the toxic people for a little while. We'll get them on out of here. Ava Miata uses premium too. Luckily, only has 8 gallons of gas. Exactly, same thing. I see. I look like Bob Marley's pubes. That's a good one. Good one. I'm always looking for the good jokes. Appreciate it. Thank you. Let's see. Easy. Now you're out of here. That was easy enough. That was actually a good one though. Cool. Yeah. I mean, fortunately, the Mini takes premium, and I put premium in it because I drive the Mini hard. I drive the Mini really hard, but usually you'd be all right. You'd be all right. I'm just looking at various creators who teach the basics of various aspects of IT, and oh my gosh, it's difficult to pick a spot to enter into. It is 100%. It's tough to it's tough to figure out where you want to go. Here's my advice on it. Don't dive too deep into anything at first. Hear a bunch of things. Let something catch your ear, and dive into that. And go into it until you feel like you're like, ugh, until you learn enough where you can really make a real decision on it, and then you can go into something else. But just pick something. Like once you get in one space, like once you're in, for most. You can't move from any discipline to any other discipline with ease, but there is a path forward for pretty much everything to be able to move from one to the other. There's a lot of overlapping knowledge in there anyway. So I really wouldn't stress about that too much. Pick what's important to you, whether it's look for something you like. If you can't find something you like, then look for the money, or either look for the money or look for the flexibility. Start to search from there and let that guide what you go into. You can't. So Linux, start with Linux though. Start with Linux. If you know some Linux, you can go anywhere. You can go into anything you want to go into. I learned the hard way that you want higher octane for small machines like lawnmowers. Yeah, stove blowers, it helps. Thank you so much, Shaman Poo. Thank you so much for the sub. I ruined my first car, needed a new short block. Exactly. Yeah, it happens. I didn't know these things either. I didn't know these things for a long time, but it definitely, if your car needs premium, I would do it. Usually, how do you know if your car needs premium? Usually it'll be on the inside gas cap. It'll tell you that it needs it. But yeah, Lala, thank you so much for stopping through from Leon Stream. Welcome. Yeah, turbo supercharged engines, absolutely. Higher octane does help a ton. I'm actually afraid. So I had an F-150 Lightning on order, and I was fortunate enough to be one of the few, I think it's 15,000 people who were able to get an allotment in the first go around. I ordered this back in May. I reserved it back in May. I didn't know I was going to be buying a house. I ordered it at the beginning of February before we decided to buy a house. And so now it's like, I shouldn't buy a expensive truck like that. I shouldn't. But basically I was able to, we decided against it, but I was able to leverage that a little bit to get some money off of a normal ice truck. I do tow because I tow to the track. So, it wasn't really the best for me. My house is also older, and so it's going to be expensive to get charging put in. For the level 2 charger, level 1 charging for a battery that big might not work out for me that well, but towing is a big problem. And so I was able to get a sweet deal on a regular F-150, and I have not had to fill it up yet because I have the Mini, and it has the extended gallon tank. It's like 36 gallon tank, and I'm so scared. I'm so scared to fill it up. Very, very scared. that thing is gonna get $20 at a time. Does Go and JS work nicely together? Really, I mean, anything can work together nicely. Yeah, I mean, people use Go for Go has a number of web development frameworks now, and so as good as any other language in JS, in my experience. All right. My daughter wants to be a pes nurse, and I want to be a nurse, and I found software engineering. I've been going down that rabbit hole. Yeah. Also, what's funny is a class I just taught, a nurse actually went through it as well to kind of just test it out and see. It doesn't have to be one or the other. You could do a little bit with both. You could be the coding nurse or something like that, and it'd be great. My car is 14 gallons, and I cringe when I fill it up now. Yeah, I love that. That sounds great to me. Every time my wife has an Explorer, and every time we're driving and I go fill it up, I'm just so hurt. And it doesn't even have a huge tank. But just I'm used to the mini gas tank. The mini gas tank is perfect. It really is like 10 gallons, like 10 or 11 gallons. I can do it. I think it's 11 gallons, and so usually when I fill up, it's about 10 gallons that goes in. And when gas started getting expensive, and I was like, "Ooh, I just had to put $50 in the Mini." But if you drive the Mini normally, you genuinely can get 45 miles to the gallon if you drive the Mini normally. You can also get 10 miles to the gallon if you're going crazy. But I'll take 45 miles to the gallon, and just drive slow. 20 gallons diesel. That sucks. Also, my house is old and I actually have to get heating oil, which is diesel. Pretty afraid I'm going to be pretty poor. So I need you all to subscribe. Nah, joking. But, you know, I am worried about that for sure. 275 gallon tank. It looks like we'll be hot. I mean, it looks like we'll be cold. You know, we don't have to fill it up now because we're going into the summertime. But yeah. All right, so let's do the WSL2 real quick, and then we'll get out of here. So, like we said, if you're not familiar, Windows has something called the Windows subsystem for Linux. And basically it is a customized Linux kernel that gets embedded into Windows, and it actually has some integrations. You can actually move back and forth. They are two systems that work relatively seamlessly together, and it's dope. And if you do install WSL2, I'll make a command for this. There is a one-liner, at least the last time I did it, there was a one-liner. I'll copy this. I'll make a command. Let's see, commands, add WSL. And so if you do WSL, it should give you to this. But all you got to do is you've got to open up PowerShell or your command prompt as, I think you got to open up as administrator. It says it right there. I should just read. Reading is fundamental. And then you just do WSL -- install to start. Now, I don't recommend you doing this right now. Even though we're finishing up, because I do think this is going to require a system restart because it has to enable a few different things. Oh, actually, there was an error. Wait, there was an error adding the command, but then it looks like it worked when you did it. So maybe there wasn't an error adding the command, but okay. Yeah, and so it does have to restart your computer. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to run the install command. It's going to install the subsystem. And then you're going to install a distribution. So you can install a bunch of different types of Linux distributions on your computer. Ubuntu is probably the one we're going to work with because that's what we're using in Linode. There's also Kali and some other stuff. Yeah, that was already there. That makes sense. Cool. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to open up command prompt or PowerShell. I'm going to do PowerShell because I generally just do PowerShell instead. So I'm going to type in PowerShell. I'm going to right click it. Run as administrator. You can do the same thing with command prompt. Find it in the menu, right click it, run as administrator. So this is the same thing like root. When you're running as administrator in Windows, that's like root inside of Linux. And then I'm going to run the command they gave me, WSL. Wow. There we go. WSL -- install. And it's going to go ahead and it's going to do some installing. Why Linode? Specifically Linode because they used to be a sponsor of the channel. And if you do ! Linode, we have credits. Like it gives you $100 worth of credits. So yeah, thanks, it's Jenny. I appreciate that. Yep, that's the only reason. Linode's dope. If you like anything else, if you know anything else, it's easy. Yeah. Hold on, that was nasty. Yeah, but that's the only reason. There's no, it works just fine. And want to save you as much money. And so right now it's downloading. Are there jobs for like junior Linux admins? Yes, there are. And while this is installing, let's go ahead and look at some jobs real quick. What do we want to look at? Indeed, sure. And I'll just pick the website. Remote. There are, so I actually spent the mid quarter of my career as a Linux administrator. And I do find there are a number of junior systems administrator roles. So junior, I'll do Linux admin, and see if we find specifically this. One, I wouldn't even look for specifically junior systems admin roles. I think, as long as it doesn't have the senior tag, I would look for it. But there's a lot of, junior mid-level systems engineer. You'll see a lot of junior cloud engineering roles that are basically just Linux administrators who know, who are going to be working inside of EC2. I see a lot of that stuff. These junior sysadmin roles are what you should be looking for as well. Most of them are Linux specific. Some of them you might have to do some Windows stuff. But take a look. Like I said, Linux is great because you can absolutely get a role just by knowing Linux well. You can get a job from just knowing Linux well. Okay, I'm not saying you're gonna get a job after taking the 7-week class, but I'm saying that this is a skill that is that important that you can get roles just off of that. Linux admin roles, they don't pay quite as high as some of the more prominent engineering roles. Probably entry level, probably $40,000 to $60,000 a year US. And then if you're once you have a year or two of experience, you can probably get 75 plus. You can certainly make 6 figures as a Linux system admin or systems engineer. And it all depends. As you start to pick up more skills, the roles kind of change. But yeah, any tips on backing up your WSL config? Had a Windows update bork my setup. I never mess with my WSL I don't. I end up just reinstalling it, and then I keep the only things I really care about is I really might start to put the applications that I use. I might write an Ansible playbook for them, so I don't have to keep reinstalling the stuff that I normally use. And then I keep my Vim configs and my ZSHRC files in GitHub. But yeah, I don't have any good reasons for that. The config is a JSON file. I don't remember where the file is, but you can back it up. I think that's is the WSL a JSON file, or is the settings for your Windows terminal a JSON? Is that the same thing, or are they different? Because I used to back that up, but then I got lazy. But I don't make that many custom changes. I usually just change the color scheme to Dracula and make some transparency edits. Yes, I primarily use Vim or NVim right now. Actually, I'm a recent NVim switcher because of everybody on. I was on a stream team with TJ and Prime and all them for a while, and so I recently switched to NVim. But yeah, I use Vim because I primarily do system stuff. So 92% of the time I'm in Vim, and then for some other stuff that I'm just not efficient with Vim for, I use VS Code to do the rest. Yeah, Windows Terminal has a JSON config. My brother just got a junior cloud admin role. It's basically Linux admin. Yes, it's a great search option. Most of the cloud admin jobs are just Linux admin jobs inside of EC2 or whatever cloud provider you're using. Puppet is good too, in my opinion. Yeah, I work with Puppet, Chef, and Ansible. I like Ansible because it's agentless, but most of my experience is with Chef actually. I'm not learning Vim until someone puts a gun to my head. That's okay. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Z-Panic, that is 100% okay. I do think your skills are best put elsewhere. I didn't know a lot, so I've been using Vim for most of my career, but before I just knew most of the basics. I was mostly modifying config files. I wasn't doing any programming in Vim or anything crazy. So open stuff. I knew how to edit stuff. I knew how to jump around lines and stuff, but my skills were pretty basic. The only reason I decided to commit to diving into it is I'm a terrible typist. I'm an awful typist. I'm also awful touch typist. And so I spent time, because I started building keyboards, learning how to be a better typist. I'm getting much better. And I figured that Vim would help me on my journey. And it has helped me on my journey to become a better typist. I'm much better typist than I was, but I'm still not good by most people's, most people's ideas of what good is. But I'm getting better. That's the only reason I dove into it. And I really do. I am glad I spent the time. But I think for most people, VS Code, even if you like Vim, VS Code with Vim key bindings is probably the answer. They have an extension that allows you to add Vim key bindings to VS Code, and that's probably the ultimate way to do things if you do like Vim. But VS Code is just that it's so good. I've been trying to figure out how to set up a system clipboard support when I SSH from Windows into Linux VM with NVIM on it. Yeah. Worth a weekend project to set up a Puppet Ansible deploy of your setup push button reset. Yeah, it's worth it. I think it's worth it. I move between machines all the time, and I don't know why I haven't done it yet. VS Code Remote is yes. VS Code Remote is very clean. It's very great. Visual Basic, I've done no Visual Basic. What is a site reliability engineer? Okay, so great question. So site reliability engineer is someone who generally site reliability engineering happens at scale. So if you're a small company, you probably don't have a site reliability engineer, but when you're dealing with a lot of systems that need to be up, that need to be reliable, resilient, basically these are folks that help set up things to make sure that this is the case. At a lot of places, this means that a lot of places you're going to be using software to do so. So yes, so there's a good amount of overlap with DevOps. If you watch some videos, they'll say that SREs, implement DevOps methodologies, but that's not necessarily their goal. Here is my simplified way of explaining this to people, and this might cause some anger. To me, both DevOps and SREs in the real world, not by proper definition, are very similar. And generally the difference is, again, that DevOps engineers, usually your customer is the developer. Your goal is to help the development process proceed as quickly as possible, to set up the pipelines, to make sure development happens as fast as possible. Whereas an SRE, on the other hand, is still dealing with many of the same things, still dealing with the pipeline, still supporting the development pipeline, but where your goal actually is the infrastructure and the systems being as resilient and reliable as possible. So you're doing a lot of the same work, but your end goal and your end focus is a little bit differently. A lot of jobs, there's tons of overlap and you might be doing almost the same thing, but these are generally people who are around to keep the systems up and reliable, putting all kinds of observability and tools around them to make them more resilient, more fault tolerant. But SREs are definitely on call for sure. DevOps might not be on call. Most DevOps engineers are on call, but they might be. But yeah, it's interesting. The SRE title though does demand a little bit more money these days. So a slightly more. I've seen a trend that you can make a little bit more as an SRE, even if you're doing the same thing. SRE, someone who yells if you touch the box. Yes. Let's see. A lot of companies use the term interchangeably. Yep. I find that to be very true. What would salary look like in this position? So, DevOps and SRE roles pay very well. Again, I'm specifically speaking about the United States. If you're not in the US, I'm not 100% sure, but in the US, I would say that entry to mid-level roles, really, there aren't a lot of entry-level roles for DevOps because of the amount of information that you need to know. But entry-level roles, 75, start at 75, 80. And I would even say up to like right over 100 is probably entry level. The company that I was working at, Fearless, the way that the salary bands worked, they didn't have any level one, true level one DevOps engineers when they changed the salary bands. And this was years ago. I left there years ago. And we had an intern who went from QA to decided they wanted to do DevOps. And so when they allowed them to do DevOps and said, cool, we like it, you're a go, you're gonna start learning. They were a true level one, and the way the salary bands worked, I think they had to pay them like high 80s, low 90s, like knowing very little about DevOps. And so it's super duper interesting. So salaries are pretty high. Mid-level right now is all over the place, but I think if you have 2 to 5 years of experience in DevOps or SRE, right now and probably for the next year or so, I think you could be anywhere between 115 and 200 as a mid-level. It's pretty crazy right now. And senior, I would say probably anywhere between 130 and 300 or 400. I've seen some wild salaries, but I think a lot of people were in the high 100 ranges, 175, 180, 190 range. If you're a senior right now, I think it's pretty easy to get. These are like the general easy salaries. I won't say easy to get, but you're not going to have to search up and down for these salaries. I think it's fairly simple to find a senior level DevOps or SRE title at 175. Like, I think you can find them all over the place. For another point, I'm lead DevOps and I'm just under 200K in the Midwest. Yep. The median for SRE in Dallas is 141. Yep, that sounds right on it. Whatever's left of systems administration after your team implements a DevOps transformation. Oh, that's good. That's good. And I think that's mostly true for how people actually implement it. I have strong thoughts about DevOps and what it should be, but we got to operate within the bounds of what it is at a lot of companies. And that is very, very true. That's why I think people should be less afraid of it. Because companies don't even really know what it is anymore. So it is what it is. The way that I transitioned from sysadmin to DevOps was I took 6 hours of a Puppet course, and I was like, oh, I know how to automate things now. Not really, but I saw it happen, and now I was a DevOps engineer, and that was my transition personally. How easy is this transition from full ops? Yeah, perfect question. I didn't even see this yet. 15 years of experience in sysops into DevOps, no Linux experience. Interesting. So that the no Linux experience is going to be the rougher piece of it. I think your ops experience is going to make you, I think it's going to make learning Linux very easy. But the no Linux experience is going to make it a little tougher. Pretty advanced in PowerShell and basic Python. Actually, you'll be fine. You will be fine. How easy is it? The hard part about DevOps is the conceptual understanding of what's going on. The actual implementation, I mean, we just Google around all day. It's honestly, if you know what to do by hand, if you're like, okay, I understand the systems and the setups that we need to make, cool. That's the hard part. Codifying it and learning how to use the tools to get it in place, I actually think is going to be pretty easy for you, because if you're good with PowerShell and basic Python, most of the stuff that you're going to be doing is you're not really going to be inside of systems like managing stuff. It's going to be, using Terraform or Ansible or Chef or Puppet or something like that to set things up, to configure things. So I actually don't think it'll be hard at all, and I don't think you'll have any trouble. 15 years of experience. People are dying for anyone with experience. So I don't think you'll have any trouble. I think you can go straight and just start applying for DevOps roles right now and make plenty of money. There will 100% always be a need for admins, DevOps, SRE. Anyone who knows how the systems work and how to get the app out to the world will always be needed. I went from Linux admin to DevOps. I was already automating things in Python and Bash, so it was an easy jump. Yeah, mostly just learning the tools and the cloud. Yep, I would actually say that's probably the sweet spot. If you're a sysadmin, learn the cloud. Don't even learn all the automation tools. Even if you don't know how to program at all, don't even learn that. Spend time learning the cloud, and I think you can get a DevOps role no problem. We get paid big bucks to write YAML. That is true. I've heard people call DevOps engineers YAML jockeys. Hurt me a little bit as a DevOps engineer. Just, it sounds derogatory, but I was writing YAML all day. So, it is what it is. I can't even be mad at it. When I say automate, do I mean machine learning? No. We literally mean taking a task that you could do manually and making it so that you don't have to do it manually. So if we're normally copying something from one place to another every day, maybe every single day someone has to go copy a report that gets generated from one server to another for processing. Hey, don't do that. We don't want to do that. We need to set up a job that does this programmatically for us. We want to, automate all the things. Can you comment on DEI and engineering for jobs? Is it better for being more inclusive minorities and females? So DEI is a tough, it's a tough topic in this space. Here's the thing. This is gonna be a little bit I'm hoping this is not going to be a little too controversial. One, there are a lot of efforts for DI everywhere across the board, and I will 100%. Companies are doing it. Companies are doing it wrong. So the team at Fearless, this is another reason why I love the company Fearless so much. Is why I talk about them so much, even though I'm not there. We literally were like, hey, the company kept touting that it was 40% or 45% women. And everyone got upset because everyone was like, yeah, like, yes, the company's 40% women, but it's not in engineering roles. So what they said is, cool, you're right. We will stop saying that, and we will make sure that we are 40%, 50%, whatever, women. And what they said is, hey, your team has openings for engineers. We will what we're going to do is this first wave, we're going to bring in as many women as possible, and they made it a point to bring a woman onto our team, and she was amazing. Before this, she didn't have a big programming background. She did a short, like 3-month apprenticeship, and when I tell you she was one of the best additions to the team. I've worked at a lot of places over the years, and I know all the DEI stuff. I know people's thoughts on diversity and inclusion. I know it's a hot topic and people feel this and that. I'm telling you from my experience, having diversity of thought on the team is an absolute significant money booster, productivity booster. It makes a substantial difference. I've been on homogenous teams. I've been on a lot of homogenous teams who we couldn't get stuff done because everybody's the same. Like I know that sound, like I know it sounds like a talking point, not a talking point. The problem with DEI is we are now talking about we're talking about industry with a high skill ceiling where you can't just say we want to hire people who historically have not been pushed in this direction, historically haven't had the resources to do this thing or that thing, and we can't just hire those people. We can't just hire them and hope that they are that they succeed here. You've got to put stuff in place. You have to put things in place to ensure that success. And companies aren't good at that. They're not good at it. They're not good at putting those things in place. And I would rather, as a person of color, and I've seen it happen. I would rather you not hire. I would rather you talking about DEI. I would rather you not hire someone and put them in a bad position than hire them and put them in a bad position. It's more detrimental. It hurts so much more. It's wild what people do. So the workplace is collaborative. It's not you going in and just writing code. Writing code is one thing. People can do it. People can come watch these things and do that. The problem is the workplace is collaborative. The people, there are people. I'm in Baltimore. There are people who I work with in Baltimore who have never had. There are Black people who have never had real conversations with white people, especially in a workplace. And that's a problem. That makes it very difficult to be able to come to work and to do what you need to do. Even if you have the skills, it makes it very, very difficult. Like there are many more factors besides being able to code. Being able to code is the least important piece of this. So it's, there's a lot. I see it every day. This is something that, I try to work on people with. Like, there are a lot of factors here. Companies need to put specific things in place to make sure these markers they're trying to hit are successful. DEI is just unfortunately it's a weird talking point at a lot of places. I do think it's important that we continue to strive to be better at it, but it is, companies haven't figured it out. I don't care what anybody says. Like companies haven't figured it out, and there are more hurdles. There are more hurdles to this than just getting people the skills. There are way more hurdles than just getting people these skills. I watched someone who had all the skills, who grinded, learned all the things, and I watched them get almost snuffed out of a role because someone because of a way a management style that like to this person's culture was offensive, and like it was wild. It was wild. It was a hostile, tense moment. It's like, how do like my whole life, if I've known something, if I've been learning something, if my interactions with people have taught me this, thing, and you throw me into a completely different space where that I just can't operate in. It makes it hard. If you go throw me into a company in India, I'm probably going to fail culturally. Things that happen there, I'm gonna have to figure it out. It's going to be wrong. If you throw me into a Japanese company, I'm going to fail. Things are different. What's expected is different. So I'm just giving you my perspective on that. It can be tough. I think it's a good conversation to have. I'm never going to shy away from conversations like this. I watch people shy away from conversations about this all the time. Talk about it, y'all. Like, talk about it. Don't be afraid to have conversations. Come in to all the conversations, open-minded. Bring your thoughts. If you have, it's okay to develop ideas, even if your ideas about things are against the grain or against the norm. Make sure you have real reasons why you believe them, though. Don't just pull talking points you thought sounded good from someone else. Think about these things. Think about the things that are going on. Think about your thoughts. Think about the things that you've seen. Think about, put yourself in someone else's shoes. Talk about them. Talk about them open, honestly. Like, share. I don't have all the answers. You don't have all the answers, but that's how we solve, even in the jobs. This is how you solve anything. So yeah, every time we bring it up, we'll talk about it. Latinos in Baltimore. Now, I'm definitely not Mr. Baltimore. I don't go a lot of places in Baltimore. I haven't seen many Latinos in Baltimore, but when I was looking at housing and stuff, I found a surprising amount of areas where there was a pretty high Latino population in the schools. So definitely there are Latinos in Baltimore. I don't see many Latinos I don't come across many Latinos in Baltimore. There are a ton in Maryland, but I don't come across many Latinos in Baltimore. And so far, my experience. Also, companies promoting their awards of being top recruiter, but don't mention how lots of employees leave. Yeah, that's really good. Yes, places suck and they have high turnover. And yeah, they're top recruiter because people came to work there because people want jobs, people want money, but their company sucks. This is a dope industry where your skills are valuable, and you will leave a company because it sucks. I can almost guarantee you'll leave a company because it sucks, and you'll have that ability to do so. It's a privilege. It's an absolute privilege to do so. But yeah, a lot of companies do suck. A lot of companies are booty, and some companies are stuck in the past, feeling like you can treat your employees like chess pieces and stuff, and it's like, no, man, we're people. It's wild that they tout those things, but companies are going to do whatever they can to make themselves seem better than they are, and it's normal. Neurodivergent person, this is my biggest concern when job hunting. In my experience, the tech industry is one of the most accommodating places for most things. But yeah, all of those things, that is not to say all of your concerns don't exist. They exist, but I think they exist in most industries. And I genuinely believe tech is one of the most welcoming industries on the planet. It still got a long way to go. I said that before one time, and somebody was like, "You're acting like they don't do this. I heard a story about this." I'm like, "Yo, yeah, yes." Yes, that's called life. Every company, every industry has big problems. I think tech is one of the most progressive industries out there. Yeah, absolutely. Can't solve the problems if you don't talk. Problem with DEI is it makes no guarantee of any given slice. Yeah, to interested populace. Yes, 100%. We need better support and transition. 150%. That's part of the reason why I did the in-person boot camp that I just got done doing. That's why I stepped away from streaming for so long, trying to think of some ways to solve it. Trying to think of some ways to solve it. It's crazy. Like, when I first got to Fearless, one of the things when I first started, one of the things I got to sit in a room about why Baltimore City children weren't able to get into the NSA is right down the street, and it offers summer internships for high school students. And it's like, we're trying to figure out why aren't any Baltimore City schools kids a part of this program? Well, one of the big things was transportation. They simply couldn't get there because there's no public transportation that goes out there. You live in a city. It's not essential you have a car. Your parents are at work at the same time that you need to do that. They just can't get you there. The second thing was clearances. To get a top secret security clearance, the things that your parents did, the things that other members of your family did, do affect you. And so stuff like that. It was so interesting about all of the layers of things that could affect your ability to be successful somewhere. And it's just like, hey, like, dang, I didn't know that. I had no idea about a lot of these things. And I've just been floored by even going to teach people in person. It's like, oh, dang, you say, oh, great, we're going to do a free in-person training somewhere. And that place is great. But when someone leaves here, they don't have internet. Like, you'd be surprised at how many people don't have internet or have access to it. Like, you would be absolutely floored, like, if you really sit down and see what people are really working with places that just don't have the infrastructure for it. Good credit, no major. There's lots of things working against a lot of people that they had no control over. Seriously. So it go have some conversations, go learn some things, because I grew up right down the street. I grew up right down, like, 40 minutes away, and Baltimore's a different world than where I grew up. I grew up in Prince George's County, PG County. Other people think PG, they hear PG, people from the DMV, oh, PG County, ooh, rough. PG County is the most affluent black county in the whole United States of America. So I had a lot of opportunities that many other people didn't have. But like, even down the street, like, even up the road, this is like, it's a different world. And like, learning about, some of the struggles here. Wow, PG for life. I would have actually loved to move back to PG. Terrible school systems, though. Not gonna lie, awful school systems. Would have loved to move back that way, but didn't work out that way. No, PG is. I get off the highway, go to my parents' house, my brother's house, and stuff. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is gorgeous. I mean, we're talking. People talk about PG being bad. My nieces, they're an equestrian. They go ride horses a mile from their house. That's crazy. Like that, y'all. People are telling me, "Oh, PG's so bad." I'm like, what? They got horses. People riding horses down there. That's beautiful. It's so nice. And so it's all what people hear. It's wild. It's wild. But hey, just live our lives. Try to be better. But PG's dope. I love PG. Would definitely move back. Would definitely move back. Cool. Well, that's it. That's it for. Oh, actually, no, it's not it. That's not it. I'm sorry. See, look at that. We did all that. So WSL2. This is the part here. You do have to reboot the system. That's what I was saying. Watch out. Maybe don't do it now. But after the reboot, WSL2 will be installed. There is one more piece though. So follow the guide. And you do have to install a Linux distribution. And so you can do WSL install -D and do it, pick a name. There's a list of them. There's Ubuntu, there's Arch Linux, I think there's Kali, I think there's a bunch of them. You can also grab one straight from the Microsoft store right here. This is where I usually install it from because, I'm trying to make the Microsoft store better. So I use it. I actually use it to make it better because it was pretty bad for a long time. And you just go in here, you can literally type in Linux and it'll give you a bunch of distributions. Kali, Suse, all these different options. But I just type in Ubuntu and I install it. And once you have this installed, all you got to do is restart your computer, and there's actually going to be a distribution open up for you. So you can either type in WSL, or you can actually open up your applications, and there will actually be a terminal that gets installed with your Linux distribution inside of it. You can access your Linux from anywhere. After you do so, you simply go into either into PowerShell or command prompt and you type in WSL. And when you hit enter, it'll take you into that. You can also set the default action to be to start up in the Windows subsystem for Linux, which is nice. I will definitely show you how to do that as we start next class. So for next class, all I need from you is to figure out how you would like to participate. So either using Linode, or using WSL. Like I said, if you're on a Mac, you're mostly fine. There will be differences in the commands. I'll attempt to call that out. You can just use your terminal, but again, there will be things like installing applications and stuff that will be different because you have a different package manager. And so, unless you have enough understanding to know where those differences are, I highly recommend you either go Linode or the virtualization route. Try out VirtualBox, Virtual Machine. If you need any help, just post something in Discord, say, hey, I've been trying to get this installed. I need help. And we're going to do our best as a community to get you going, get you up, get you running. So that's all you got to worry about. Don't need to learn anything else. Starting next Thursday, you're going to learn a ton of commands. You're going to learn a ton about Linux. Next Thursday, we're going to go all through the file system. You'll learn command line navigation. You'll learn how to get forward, back, how to get information about where you are, how to do some stuff with files. So you'll learn a ton. And then you'll actually get a bunch of practice things to do so that you can spend a whole week becoming a pro at what we learn next week. And so, but in between each week, it won't just be learn and sit for a week. It'll be learn. Here are 10 things to practice, to go through, to really cement the knowledge. And that's what we'll do. So if you're not in the Google Classroom, !Linux Classroom will get you in there. That's where all of the information will be shared. Being around horses has to be a great experience growing up. Gotta be, right? It has to be. My niece's 10th birthday was at the equestrian center, and I'm like, this is fancy. We've come up a long way. This is great. It's pretty dope. But just, count blessings. I certainly understand what a blessing that is. I certainly understand, I'm fortunate enough to have seen a vast, have lived and seen a vast difference in what life could be like. And so I'm super appreciative of the things that tech has allowed me to do. And for that exact reason is why I would like for you all to learn tech as well, because it truly is the great equalizer. It can be the great equalizer. It can pull people. It can pull you out of a lot of situations. If money's the problem, tech can pull you up out of a situation. I'm telling you, I outran my problems. I out-earned my problems. Tech allowed me to out-earn both problems that I fell into and ones that I created for myself in life. And opportunity. Again, tech to me equals opportunity. You got to work for it, but it's pretty. You can work for it by kicking your feet up and watching and turning on Disney Plus over here while you look through some articles and you practice your commands. To me, that's love. That's love. I literally sit here with my monitors. I literally Netflix. When I'm working, I got Netflix over here to the left. I got a movie over here to the left, and I'm doing my work to the right. It can't always do that because sometimes you really got to get in deep and think. But perception is a lot. I'm hoping to give you my outlook on these things a little bit to just to see how great it could be. But I know everyone's situation isn't the same. I know this is probably a stressful time for a lot of people. For some people, you're like, yo, I got to make this happen because my life needs it. When I tell you I understand, I understand 100%. I get it. Keep going, keep fighting, keep learning, surround yourself with it, keep talking to each other, keep asking for help. Keep being curious about it. The more you are looking for a way out, the more you are looking for the next step, the easier it'll be to find it. You won't see the next step unless you're looking for it. Keep searching for the path. Keep walking the path. We'll be great. We'll be great together. Remember, Camp Code every Monday. So if you want to learn software engineering and computer science, we're going deep. We're going deep into the computer science concepts. We're actually using Go for that class every Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern time. If you miss it, completely okay. Exclamation point VODs. Follow that channel. All streams will go on that channel. You can find all streams on that YouTube channel. They're available here on Twitch for 60 days afterwards. So it's okay if you can't make it. Don't trip if you can't make it. Don't be too hard on yourself. If you're too tired one day, give yourself some love. Give yourself, it's okay. It's all right. Just hop back in as soon as you're up to it. As soon as you have some time, try to be as consistent as possible. But life happens. Every Tuesday, Camp Cloud. If you want to learn AWS, hop in every Tuesday, 7 p.m. And then the Devops Anthology is here. The next 7 weeks, we're learning Linux. Following that up, we're learning some sysadmin stuff. Then we're learning some Git stuff, some Python, then Git, then all the other stuff, CI/CD, all of that other stuff. Cool. That was a lot. Thanks for letting me rant a little bit. Thanks for listening to me. Let's find out who we're gonna raid this evening. Let's see who's online. I'm on. You can't see who I'm looking at because I'm on my other computer. That's just a little bit easier. I'm seeing who I haven't seen. Whoa, that's loud. Hold on. Let's see. Absolutely. Happy Mother's Day in advance to everybody. Out to all the mothers out there. Much love. Couldn't do anything without you all. You're super appreciated. Finite singularity. Okay. I don't know. Let me just make sure that's not a naked person. That's all. You threw it out there first, so I will certainly go with that. Perfect. Oh, doing Rust. Let's go. And doing coding challenges. We're definitely rating finite singularity. Thank you so much, Code with Sean. Let's do it. And again, I do have to check because sometimes people will throw out someone who's hot tub streaming, and it's like, I'm cool with that. I'm actually cool with that, but there's kids on here. There's kids on here sometimes, so yeah, we'll definitely get. I love Anthony Rice Code too. We'll definitely get to Anthony Rice Code. He streams a lot, but let's hit up finite singularity. Let me spell it right. I can't type. Let's go. We're out of here in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you everyone so much for coming through. I'll see you all next week.